On today's episode of Mile Higher, we have two guests joining us, Peyton and Garrett from Murder with My Husband.
Hi, everyone.
Mysterious murder case in Aspen, the first murder there in 12 years.
Why is Nancy S. already speculating that Nancy killed herself?
I need you to tell me exactly what happened.
My friend is in her closet dead.
She disrespected me like no other person has ever done.
Oh, that was the wrong reaction. He must be guilty.
You get bad landlords all the time. You don't go off and kill them.
When he saw Nancy just peacefully sleeping there, something just flipped in him.
My mom could never hurt anything or hurt anyone.
I just think there is no way he could have done that alone.
He also wrote, "Be careful what you ask for. You may get more than you expect."
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Welcome back to Mile Higher Podcast, episode 252. And today is a very special episode because we have two guests joining us. And this is the collab that almost didn't happen.
The universe almost said no.
Yes.
It's never going to happen.
We will explain why. But welcome to the studio, Peyton and Garrett from Murder with My Husband.
Hi, everyone. We are so excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, this has been... God, how long have we tried to do this?
Almost a year.
Almost a year.
I think, over a year. Last March, I was actually just looking out is when we first flew out.
Oh, was it March?
Yeah, I think it was March. Almost positive.
No, I think it was...
Maybe not.
It was when your grandma died. So that was like June. I think it was June.
Oh, dang.
And then the
That's
last
crazy.
time you were supposed to come was this last
Oh,
March.
yeah, you're right.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah,
that was
yeah,
last March.
That's what
There
it
we
was.
go.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
Everything's a blur.
Yeah, it is all blur. But we're here.
Yes,
Finally. We're super excited.
We were like, will we actually make it into the seats though?
I
know.
just know that we're going to be done and it's not going to have recorded like all of it.
No,
Don't say it. Don't say
Everyone
that.
knock on wood.
Get Peyton out of here.
Oh, God.
Yes, we are so excited to have you guys here. To explain, the first time that we had them out, they came all the way to Colorado. Janelle was sick. I was having blood pressure issues that first day. Maybe we were supposed to record, and then I was like, I can't. I was like 8 months pregnant at that point, maybe 7. And then they literally came to the office. We're sitting around our conference table talking about the episode and what we were going to do. We were like 10 minutes out from sitting down to record.
Yeah, we were literally about to head back to the studio to start.
Yeah. And then Josh got a call from his mom that his grandma passed away that morning.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, you guys were so understanding.
Oh, yeah.
But
Family is the most important. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And just like, we thought like maybe you can try to pull it together. But I mean, we were both just devastated. We love Josh's grandma so much. And it was
it's
really
just like, I
emotional.
want to make sure that, I mean, you guys this is the best collab we can do, right?
Yeah.
Like in dealing with the death of a loved one, it doesn't put you in the best headspace. And then obviously to go do true crime after that doesn't help either.
Yeah.
So, so it's just like, I felt really bad because obviously you guys are already out here and I was like, oh man, this is really unfortunate timing, but
yeah,
you got to do what you got to do. And, life happens and you just got to kind of go with it. But we really appreciate you guys making the trek back out here a third time. And it's actually happening.
Second time was our fault.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Second time.
Second time was our fault. We got a puppy and that was, I guess, a bad idea. I don't know.
We were like, we had trained her in her little airport bag carrier. And then we got to the airport and she wasn't trained. All training went out the window.
She lost it.
I don't blame her. I mean, airports are intense for humans.
Yeah. And it was just more important that she be okay. So we were like, hey, we're rescheduling again.
Yep. So here we finally are.
Third time's the charm, right?
We are so excited to have them here today. So can you guys kind of tell everyone who isn't familiar with you, which I know a lot of our audience already, watched Garrett and Peyton. So you guys have
who
a
is
couple
Murder
of
with
shows.
My Husband?
Yes.
Yeah. You can go.
So back in 2020, I really wanted to start a true crime podcast, had no one to start it with. My husband, Garrett, was like, I'll be your co-host. And I said, that is not going to work. You hate true crime. We never talk about true crime. He said, maybe that can be the thing. You love it and I hate it. And that was where Murder with My Husband was born. I love true crime. He hates true crime. So you kind of get two different perspectives with one story. I sit down, I tell Garrett a different story every week. He has no idea.
No idea. I think that's the biggest question is, do you know what's going on? I have no idea what's going on. No idea when I sit down in the chair.
Nothing.
No prep.
Just completely raw reactions.
Yep.
100%.
Which is kind of fun. We've noticed with, listeners in the audience, he's in the same boat as you guys because you guys didn't do any prep before sitting down and listening. And so that's fun because he kind of takes on the role of the listener, which then leads to better questions being asked and whatnot.
Yeah. Honestly, it's so unique. I don't think there's anyone else doing it like that.
It's fun. And I mean, it's fun for me because I don't have to do the research. So that's fun. But it's just
a good job.
Yeah, exactly. But it's fun. We love it. And here we are 3 years later.
Are you liking true crime a little bit more now?
So we get that question so much. And
is it growing on you?
Yeah, it's hard to answer. It's like, I like true crime. Okay, sorry. I don't like true crime, but I understand it. I think that's the better way to put it.
You have a better appreciation and understanding for people in true crime.
I think before it was like, this is like, why would someone listen to this? I don't understand it. This is stupid. Now I totally get it.
Yeah.
It makes way more sense.
He used to be a judger. Now he understands us all.
Yeah.
So you get the intrigue behind why people are interested in learning about crimes that happen to other people, and also the importance of talking about true crime.
100%. It's actually, I think that's the biggest thing too, is it's actually really important. So much of this just goes untalked about or unnoticed. And I've kind of start to understand the idea of why people do talk about it.
Well, it's what we're really doing as a true crime podcast is almost a service to the public in a way, because a lot of times, many of the cases that we cover, you guys cover, there's not a lot of necessarily media coverage on it. And a lot of times these cases need awareness and need to be heard by more people. Like the families are literally begging for people to talk about their loved one's
and there's just
case. And
so
there's
many out there.
Sad.
Right. Yeah. And there's not enough people talking about it to keep it in the news and keep law enforcement on it and things like that. So this is actually, I feel like it's a very important job to do. And you can't take it lightly because obviously, true crime is serious stuff at the end of the day. You're talking about people's worst days and probably some of the most tragic things that happen in people's lives. So it's, you got to tread carefully with it. But I think if you do it right, which I think you guys do it right.
Appreciate it.
And you can really make an impact beyond just sort of, like most people kind of, maybe where you're at, it's kind of like, oh, it's just this weird entertainment thing. You guys are, it's kind of, are you guys sick? Like, there's kind of a sick fascination with this stuff. And I get it because a lot of people just understand it from this outside perspective and they haven't really dove in to really see what's going on beneath the surface. And obviously too, like we're all kind of biased based on what we see on TV, right?
Yeah.
Because we all grow up with like Dateline, 2020, and it's all, like they do some good stuff, but it's also corny as hell, like most of the time.
And not only is it corny, it's oftentimes really disrespectful. We've met so many family members out there who have had really bad experiences working with TV productions that they're salacious. They don't focus on the victims. They leave out important details. They don't have enough control. And it's cool that now true crime is more in the hands of the average person. And instead of, the mainstream news doesn't really talk about true crime unless it's some big case that happens to get enough publicity.
That often has some sort of shock and awe element to it that drives ratings.
Like Gabby Petito, for example, right?
Yeah, exactly. Versus, local news stations will cover some crimes. I mean, they still could do a much better job, but they're only reaching people locally. And oftentimes these families need much more support than that. And so for us to be able to reach a nation or worldwide audience, I think really helps. So it's definitely something that people who don't get true crime are like, why are you doing this? Why are you so interested in this? But I mean, it really does help so many families to just get things off the ground. Awareness is absolutely key.
And you have honoring the victim. I mean, oftentimes these people, get murdered and then no one thinks about them again.
Yep.
And I think for me, just even if it's a day of thousands of people thinking about one person and remembering them for who they are, I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
And I think that that's another great part of true crime now.
I completely agree. And so often the average person will be able to name the killer in a case.
Yep.
And they can't remember the actual victims' names or they don't care to learn. And so, we've really tried to focus our content. I know you guys do the same on really telling these people's story. They're real people. It shouldn't be for entertainment. Obviously, people find it interesting and are entertained by it, but there's a bigger mission. And it's a very fulfilling job doing true crime podcasts.
100% agree.
Content. So Yeah. So where can people find you guys?
So you can find us, anywhere at Murder With My Husband, Instagram. I'm sure there'll be a description below as well, or a link in the description below as well.
Yes, definitely.
But it's at Murder With My Husband. That'll pop up, and it'll have some of our other shows as well, and everything will be there.
We have another show called Binged, which is just me, and I do a mini series type show where I take real estate agents who have killed. I cover a couple cases, different episodes, and then we move on to a new theme. So that's Binged. And then we also have our Rising Crime show that's brand new. And that one is covering all things true crime news. So you don't have to scroll your TikTok For You page anymore looking for the next update. You can just go to Rising Crime and get it there.
And you can find Murder With My Husband on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, just kind of everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of times you guys are like within a few shows of us on the rankings.
Yeah.
Too,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
Oftentimes I'll go
We're
and
buddies.
check, and we're always kind of hanging
Or
out.
like
together,
the
so.
suggested shows too. It'll say like Mile Higher and everything, or Murder With My Husband.
Yeah, we just went out to brunch before this and we were discussing how we think we probably have a lot of crossover since our shows are similar in the fact that we are a husband and wife duo doing true crime.
Which is so cool that there's another husband and wife.
Yeah.
I know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know.
There's
I'm
not
sure
many.
there's others.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. I know
I don't think
there's
there's
gotta be
anybody
others.
else.
No.
We're
Really?
in.
Yeah, we're only us.
Don't
We're-
go looking.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
go down.
Don't get any ideas out there, people. There's only room for 2 shows. Three won't work.
That's funny.
But I think it's a cool perspective because I think, especially in certain cases where there's, love triangles like today's episode, there's some of those elements there. And just as a husband and wife, you kind of bring a unique perspective to some of this. And it's a very relatable perspective most of the times for the audience, right?
Right.
So it's like, I think it's kind of a cool thing to, be able to share. It's a fun thing to share together, obviously.
Oh, for sure. We could
And-
do a whole nother episode about working with your spouse and
Totally.
how that is, and in the good parts about it as well too.
Yeah.
And those parts that you just want to forget about.
Yeah.
Those
So funny.
episodes where you're like, oh man, I'm not sure this was a good idea.
Yeah.
No. And no one sees anything because you cut everything out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've gotten better about that. Back in the day, Josh and I sometimes would go at it mid-recording, have to edit it all out, and Janelle would get to hear it all.
That's so funny.
Janelle's back this week,
Yes.
you guys, by the way.
Oh, yes. Hello, I'm back. From
Janelle's
the Mile
back?
Higher Plague.
Oh yeah. We seriously did have a Mile Higher Plague. Like everyone in our office went down at one point last week,
Ugh.
other than us. And Julia, you made it through too.
Shout out.
Yeah,
Julia's
I did make
here.
it through. Very happy. I hate being sick. So.
Yeah, who doesn't? Oh, and it was like a bad situation. Like everyone had strep and chest infections, and like it was absolutely chaotic. But anyway, so today's episode is going to be a little different, obviously, because we've obviously had guests on the show, but we've never had another podcast collaborating with us.
Yeah.
So we're kind of taking the Murder With My Husband style here, where you guys are somewhat familiar with the case we're covering today, but for the most part, we're going to be kind of teaching you about it.
Yep.
And then we are going to be on their show, which actually already came out by the time you're seeing this. Your guys' show releases Monday, right?
Correct. Yep.
So you can go and check that out right after this. And Josh and I are going to do an episode with them where they are we're switching roles, and they will be explaining the case
Yeah, it's gonna be
to us.
Yeah.
We are doing something today that we have never done on this show.
And we have 2 special people here, Kendall and Josh from Mile Higher Podcast.
Howdy, people.
What's up?
Today, we are discussing the disappearance of Matthew Levison, who happened to disappear during a night of partying.
Interesting.
So let's get into it. It appears that no one other than Michael has seen Matthew since early Sunday morning at the club when he walked out.
Is there anything you can say about that? Don't think so.
The nerve of this guy.
He doesn't care about his life at all. He's disposable to him.
Police watch the video, and who do you think they find on camera purchasing the duct tape and the mattock? Michael.
So that is some seriously solid evidence right there.
I would agree.
What an evil person.
Right.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of any
No.
case that's like
That's
this.
done that. No.
We're recording that one tomorrow,
Yep.
which is all very confusing
Yeah,
since
but
this
it'll
stuff
be
is already
done.
gone.
Yeah.
But I'm very,
Mhm.
I kind of like this format because it allows you also time to really think about,
Process everything.
process it. Because sometimes when you're actually telling a story, it's hard to also have your own thoughts
Yep.
Yeah.
at the same time because you're trying to get all this information out while also trying to infuse your own personal thoughts, but to be able to kind of sit back and like just digest it.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see.
Yeah.
That's going to be a really cool experience for me. I've never done anything
I was going
like
to say,
that.
this is the first time I've never not told a story.
Yeah.
So I'm interested because I've never even thought that. But you're right. I've never had my own personal thoughts because I've already wrote them all in a script.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to have those thoughts come up while you're talking.
Yeah.
There we go.
I'm actually curious to hear kind of your thoughts. That will be interesting.
Yeah.
Because usually just tell me the story.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be fun.
So we got major groundbreaking content going on here.
You guys are going
Buckle
to
in.
love it.
It's either going to be really good
or we're going to have to delete the episodes.
or it never goes up.
Yeah.
But anyway, today we are going to be talking about a very shocking case out of Aspen, Colorado. Josh and I love to cover Colorado cases just because we're like familiar with the locations. Do you guys ever cover cases from places where?
For sure. We originally started in Utah and we've covered many Utah cases. And then I'm from Idaho and we've covered a good share of Idaho cases as well.
There's always something about it, even when you've traveled to the place where it takes place, where you kind of can get an idea in your head of where all this is happening. But we are going to be talking about 57-year-old Nancy Pfister, who was a very free-spirited socialite living in the luxury ski town of Aspen, who loved to travel and party. And eventually she met Nancy, another Nancy, which we'll explain could get a little confusing. We'll try to keep that as simple as possible for you guys. And her husband, Trey Styler, who were kind of a down on their luck couple out of Denver looking to start fresh in Aspen. And she thought that meeting them was perfect and good karma. But 4 months after they moved into her mountain home, she was found bludgeoned to death in her bedroom. And so we're going to be discussing who really killed Nancy Pfister and if multiple people could have been involved.
Today's episode is sponsored by PayPal Honey, the easy way to save when shopping on your iPhone or computer. With inflation on the rise, we're all looking for ways to save money where we can. And thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is a thing of the past. Which, do you remember those days? Looking through all the like coupon sites, and then you get so mad when you'd put a coupon code and be like, yeah, this was just used like 15 minutes ago. Yeah. And then it wouldn't work.
I know, that was such a pain. I'd have to try like 15 and then eventually just give up.
And then you end up on all these sketchy sites. You're like downloading viruses to your computer. And just to get, a little discount off of your pizza or something. Well, those days are over because, thanks to Honey, it makes it extremely easy to go out there and find the best coupon codes on the internet in order to save you tons of money, no matter what you're shopping for. And it's super easy. Imagine you're shopping at one of your favorite sites, and when you go to checkout, the Honey button appears, and all you have to do is click Apply Coupons. Wait a few seconds as Honey does its thing, searching for the best coupon code out there. And if it finds a working coupon, you'll just watch the prices on your cart fall. Nothing brings you more joy than watching your cart total drop after running Honey.
It's so satisfying.
It really is. There's no reason not to use it, right?
I know.
It's completely free.
It's so true. We've saved massive amounts of money by using Honey over the years. And just, what was it? Like 2 nights ago, I was shopping for baby gear, as babies are endless money pits. And every stage, you got to get new stuff, new toys, new bibs, And I was buying a bunch of these like little foam mat things that have like different
so you can like stack them and like
and
make little ramps and stuff, things for them to crawl over. So she can start kind of climbing on it as she's starting to sort of crawl. And stuff is expensive, like way more than I thought. What'd you save on that?
$30.
$30.
$30. I was really impressed.
Just by using Honey. They can help you with baby gear, clothes, tech gadgets, and like we mentioned before, you can always save money with Honey for pizza, man. They always come in clutch. Honey doesn't just work on desktop, though. It also works on your iPhone, too. Just activate it on Safari on your phone and save on the go. If you don't already have Honey, you could be straight up missing out. And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting this show.
Thank you.
Get PayPal Honey for free at joinhoney.com/milehigher. That's joinhoney.com/milehigher.
So Nancy Merle Pfister was born July 4th, 1956 in Orofino, Idaho to her parents, Betty Haas Pfister and Art Pfister. She also had 2 sisters, Suzanne and Christina. Her mother was a World War II pilot and a total badass. Yeah. She was actually one of the first women to fly on a Wasp. Her father made his money off of land in Aspen that he bought in the 40s, which Aspen, I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Aspen?
Yeah. That's an expensive area.
Yeah. It's like the Richie Rich area of Colorado. So he founded Aspen's Buttermilk Ski Resort. And at the time, he only paid $30,000 for a 700-acre ranch. And then in 1958, he developed that land into Buttermilk Mountain.
Is it still there? Buttermilk Mountain?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It's part of Aspen Snowmass. So it's a part of like the larger Aspen ski resort, I believe. But
yeah. So as you can imagine, they made hella dough.
Yeah, a lot of money.
It was a good choice.
Definitely. But both of her parents were very adventurous people, very outdoorsy sort of people. Her mom flew fighter jets, hot air balloons, and even a helicopter that she named Tinkerbell. And they were Aspen fixtures, royalty in town, as you could say. And Nancy grew up to be the same kind of person, adventurous, free-spirited, and one of Aspen's most iconic residents.
I mean, with parents like that, you can easily see why. Right? Like, that's honestly really, really badass that her mom was a helicopter pilot and flew fighter jets. I feel like that was not a super prominent thing.
No, for a woman, no way.
Boundaries. Yeah.
Like, that's super impressive.
Really cool.
But Nancy had lived a charmed life since she was a kid. She loved being outdoors. She was a mountain girl with a tomboyish side and a love for horseback riding. She was a socialite in Aspen, Colorado, a town that needs no introduction. If you've ever been there, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe Aspen. It's like if you go to like Rodeo Drive and in Beverly Hills, and it's kind of like that. You know, there's designer stores everywhere, and obviously it's changed over time. It used to be like a quaint mountain town, and it grew, and you know that once they got an airport, of course, and you know everybody can fly in and go skiing and stuff. So it got progressively more wealthy as time went on.
I feel like that's how most people are familiar with it, that celebrities go there for their
if you watch like
vacations.
Keeping Up with the Kardashians, they go to Aspen and stuff. You know?
Socialites too were like the influencers before phones existed, you know?
Yes.
It's like those were the people.
With the paparazzi on them. Yeah.
I thought they called themselves.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've actually never been to Aspen.
Yeah.
Did you know that? Have you ever been to Aspen?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been to Aspen.
Oh,
it's too expensive.
I haven't been either.
I haven't either.
Yeah, my family could never afford it.
So you don't stay in Aspen. You go. So there's
visit.
Yeah, so you can stay in Basalt, which is just outside of it. Carbondale.
We've been to Carbondale. Love Carbondale.
Because if you go get a hotel there, it's like super duper expensive.
Okay,
like
it's crazy.
$500
like
a
Vail
night minimum,
times 5,
probably, or more, maybe like $1,000 a night.
That's
minimum.
crazy.
But then you can stay outside. Like there's Airbnbs now, obviously outside of town, and then you can drive in and enjoy the.
And most people that work there
live out.
drive in.
They can't afford to live in town. So because I mean, it's like there's like a downtown area, but then it's just like massive homes, like on sprawling acreage all around it. And tons of famous people have actors, musicians. I mean, there's a huge long list of rich people that own property up there. It's cool to just go up there and drive around and like look at houses and stuff like that.
We should do that.
It's beautiful up there too, especially in the fall.
It must be kind of like Jackson, Wyoming in a way.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, similar to like Jackson Hole.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm thinking
she's pretty close to Jackson, an hour and a half or so.
Or like Park City. Almost.
Oh, Utah, yeah,
totally.
Super
Park City's
expensive up there.
Becoming like Aspen for sure.
It is definitely getting more and more expensive every year.
Yep. It's very fancy. You know,
yeah, I can't afford to go up. I mean, maybe eat a dinner night or two there. That's about it.
Yeah, definitely not the designer shopping. That's for sure.
Yeah, just going off the whole bougie vibe of Aspen. I mean, we're not kidding. The average house cost, I looked it up, is almost $3 million right now. It's
average
2.9.
That's insane.
Right under
average.
3. And it's not that big of a town. There's like a little less than 7,000 people living there, but there's a lot of money in there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of vacation homes too. That's why the population's lower. Is like it's a lot of like people's second homes and things like that. There's not like a bustling locals scene there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
7,000 rich people just all in one area.
Yeah.
But you have to think like, if you own a house in Aspen and you're not even, it's my summer home, my $3 million summer home, you know, where do you live full time?
Yeah, for real.
Probably in a $20 million home in California.
Calabasas.
Yeah,
Calabasas. Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't Nancy's home? We looked it up last night. It was like $12 million.
Yeah, and it's for sale.
Oh, it's for sale now. Oh,
and
if you got the
for
money,
$12
jump on
million bucks, like it's not that nice of a house.
No.
Honestly. It's like,
it's not what you would be thinking for $12 million.
You're paying for the land too.
Yeah.
Like, I think her property has like 30 acres or something too. So 30 acres in Aspen is going to be like, that's like $5 million by itself probably for the land. And then the house is, it's decent, but it's not anything to write home about. But Nancy Pfister was Aspen. Like, everybody knew who she was whenever she went out. It's like, she was the talk of the town. And obviously, like we've been talking about, Aspen is the haven for the rich, celebrities, politicians, even princes. And of course, the fabulously wealthy all go to Aspen to ski during the winter. It's like the spot. And if you want to go skiing there, it will cost you your soul because it is very expensive to ski there. The town knows no recession. The streets are lined with designer clothing stores and 5-star restaurants. A week-long stay at a luxe hotel penthouse downtown costs about as much as the average American's yearly salary.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
For a penthouse. That's just how much money is there. Wow. But back in the 1970s when Nancy was growing up, it was more of a town for the wild and free. It was a place people could move to reinvent themselves. This was the Aspen that Nancy knew and loved. And she really embodied both of those Aspens, the free living, free loving town it was and the luxurious town that it is today. So like she liked it at the beginning and liked it as it evolved. Nancy's favorite place to hang out in Aspen was the Hotel Jerome's famous J Bar. It's long been a place for the rich and famous. Notably, this is where the legendary journalist Hunter S. Thompson set up shop for his Aspen sheriff campaign. And he and Nancy actually partied together. Nancy had always been sort of a hippie, so she fell in love with that crowd of Aspenites pretty naturally. Nancy hung out and partied with plenty of famous people, including rock stars, movie stars, pro skiers, and even the Kennedys.
Aspenites. That's hilarious.
Aspenites.
Of course they have a name.
She partied with the Kennedys.
The Kennedys too. That's true.
Believe it or not, she dated actors Jack Nicholson and Michael Douglas, who really sort of like introduced her to this bigger world of Aspenites. And at one point, she and Michael Douglas were actually engaged, but Nancy was a free spirit. She had a lot of boyfriends, and she was a heartbreaker for sure.
Which, by the way, her and Jack Nicholson met when she was a teenager, but he was in his 30s.
Do you know how old she was? Like 13, 16?
Well,
she must have been like...
She's in the teens.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't matter either way. It's all the
teens. If it ends in teens, she's too young for you, bro.
That's right. So Nancy never really settled down long, both physically and in some ways mentally. At age 29, she gave birth to her daughter named Juliana, and the father was an Argentinian polo player who Nancy never intended to marry, and Nancy made Hunter S. Thompson her godfather. Is he famous? I don't know
who's
who that is.
I was going to say.
So, yeah, Hunter S. Thompson, he's kind of before our time, I think, a little bit. I had to look him up too, but...
Have you guys seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
No.
It's like a really famous like drug movie. It's based on his book. He's like a gonzo journalist, really famous kind of for his style of journalism and his like insane wildlife and you know.
He rose to prominence because he did a publication on Hell's Angels. The motorcycle, I guess, gang group. And I guess that was cool stuff back then. So
she knows everybody.
Yeah.
So
that's such a bougie thing to have like a famous godfather for your
randomly
your
Hunter S. Thompson. You know him, right?
I'm gonna make you our baby's godmother. Then they can have a bougie godmother.
Oh, I'd be honored.
Mile high.
I'll be the godmother. No baby on the way though, right?
No baby.
Good.
I guess you never know, but as far as we know, no baby.
So Nancy loved being a mom, and she took Juliana everywhere with her on her travels all over the world. And she raised her daughter in a log home in Aspen built by her father in 1991. And she even served as Roaring Fork Schools District PTA. And when she jetted off to the next far-flung place on the other side of the globe, she left Juliana in the care of relatives and friends. But Nancy never really settled down in a specific place or with a specific man. But Aspen was always her home base. Many of its conservative, well-to-do citizens did not approve of Nancy Pfister's lifestyle. However, she was a social butterfly who could still get along with everyone. Whether it was Aspen's wealthy townspeople, celebrities, ski bums, or waiters, people found her to be charming and magnetic. But just because Nancy was known by everyone in Aspen didn't mean that she was liked by everyone. Nancy knew how to party, no doubt, but sometimes her behavior definitely got her in trouble.
Yeah, and it didn't help that she's a big drinker, and by big, I mean big. She would start with champagne in the morning and be drunk by noon.
Yeah,
pretty much every day.
Okay.
So
it seemed like she was possibly even struggling with addiction.
Being an
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, she would also take various pills. Some were prescriptions, some weren't, but it was like on a pretty regular basis. So you combine those two together and things are not going to go well most of the time.
So obviously we're just speculating here, but she could have had a lot of pain and things that she was kind of coping with alcohol. And it's really sad when you think about it.
But yeah, because she was partying so hard, she developed a reputation for drunken chaos around town, and behind her back, people started to call her No Pants Nance.
Oh my!
So she was wild. Like she got after it when it came to partying. She'd have a different guy every week. She would have threesomes, foursomes, group sex, the whole nine.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Which no
I was
judgment.
gonna say, I mean, No Pants Nance. It could be worse. As far as nicknames
I guess
go.
that is true. That's a good point.
She may have liked it. I mean, who knows?
And how old is she at this point in the case?
Well, she was born in 56, so this is after her daughter's born in 91. So we're talking like 30s, 40s, probably.
30s, 40s.
So we're kind of like going up to before everything kind of unfolds in her. So she's definitely like through her 30s and 40s partying like this hard.
Well, she met all those like celebrities when she was in her teens, and I mean, she was partying ever since.
That's true. Yes, she's been partying since her teens. That's a good point. And it just never stopped.
Yeah.
But she was also the kind of woman who'd sit in your husband's lap right in front of you, and not once, not twice, but like over and over and over again, just without regard. Like,
don't be doing that.
Yeah. I think today we call those pick me girls, if I am knowing on what all the TikTok people are saying.
Yeah, that sounds like an accurate term that I have no idea about.
trying to steal your man. It's also rumored that sometimes her assistant Kathy and Nancy would sleep together too. So she was very, very free-spirited. Absolutely.
Very free-spirited.
But this is in rumor mill. That is not confirmed, just to be clear.
So Nancy was very good friends with a woman who I just mentioned, Kathy. Her name's Kathy Carpenter. So Kathy worked at the Alpine Bank in town, and she grew up in Roaring Fork Valley. She didn't grow up rich like Nancy, though, and she could afford to live in Aspen because her work provided her with housing. But the two had met about 10 years prior when Nancy came into the bank to open an account. She told Kathy, "You're very beautiful, but you're fat."
Oh my God.
Like straight to her face.
Like as soon as she met her.
That's insane.
She called her fat.
"You're beautiful, but you're fat." So.
And yet they ended up being really good friends.
Yeah.
Which like
surprises me.
Yeah.
Kathy's response was, "And you're a bitch." So, I mean,
and now we're best friends.
Now I kind of can see the friendship though, because if someone said that to my face, I would be like too stunned to speak. I'd be like, wait, did they really just say that?
I know.
Kathy was quick on her feet. She was like, and you're a bitch.
Yeah. So they kind of worked as friends.
Because some, you know, we weren't there to see that interaction go down. So it could have been more of like a playful sort of thing where it's like,
I don't know
that's
how
just how
playful
she
it is to be like, you're fat.
I mean, that's pretty rude, no matter if you're kidding or not.
You're fat? Like, how did she say
it? If you're listening, don't tell that joke to me, okay? I won't think it's playful.
No, I would be so pissed.
Yeah, you're going to get a scary reaction out of me if you say that to me. But the two of them were drinking later that day. So it was like, you know, it's kind of an interesting way to start off a relationship or a friendship. And, you know, it led to them becoming friends. Kathy was also Nancy's personal assistant. Kathy was her personal banker, DD, house sitter, and dog sitter. She was also pretty consistently Nancy's drinking buddy. And Kathy was not paid for any of these roles. So you kind of are seeing there's potentially like Nancy taking advantage of Kathy a bit, you know, it's kind of bringing her in. And clearly they liked being around each other to some extent, because why would you be doing all this stuff for somebody if you didn't like being with them? Yeah. And there's perks to being with Nancy.
I was going to say, well, that's the thing.
I was going to ask.
There's perks.
Yeah. Did she get like free jewelry, you know, whatever it is from Nancy?
At least some free drinks, I would imagine.
Yeah. No, she got really introduced into the high life, you could say. Yeah. She started eating sushi. She'd never really done that before. Drinking champagne, introduced to fine art. And without Nancy, she wouldn't have seen certain places or done certain things. So there were a lot of benefits, but Nancy could definitely be, you know, demanding.
I know random, but this reminds me of Bernie Tita a little bit. that relationship.
Oh, yeah. Very similar. That case we were just telling you guys to watch.
That we
movie.
were going to cover.
I know.
Yeah. They were supposed to be on that episode.
But then Daisy.
Yeah. Daisy. Damn it. So clearly, Nancy was a no bullshit type of person who told it like it was, which sometimes bothered Kathy. And the mixed friend assistant role, as you can imagine, led to some conflict. She and Kathy sometimes got into fights, and those fights were definitely fueled by alcohol. One night in August 2012, the two of them were drinking at a bar up in Glenwood Springs, which is another mountain town about an hour away from Aspen. Very low-key area. We love Glenwood
Great
Springs.
place to visit if
Family
you're coming
spot.
to Colorado. Lots of fun stuff to do there.
Yeah. But anyway, they had been drinking, and they forgot where they parked their car, Nancy's Toyota Prius.
So despite her being like wealthy and everything, she's still like driving the Toyota Prius.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And
She
it's like,
was an environmental queen.
you know, she, I guess.
That also took private jets.
Yeah.
Do you
The
know
two equal out, right?
Do you know if Nancy had been arrested at all up until this point?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think she had a
if
pretty
there
clean record.
was never recorded
Here and there.
you
And
know?
also she was so wealthy. She's talk of the town.
Aspenites don't get arrested.
True. That is
They don't have
true.
a
She's
jail.
like, hey, my daddy owns that mountain.
Exactly.
Let me go.
No, but she definitely, I mean, there's really nothing reported.
Okay.
It's quite possible she never did
Nothing
anything
happened.
that would have gotten her arrested. Now, when it comes to the conflict between Kathy and Nancy, obviously there are two sides to every story. And one side of the story goes something like this. Nancy was trying to force Kathy to drive, but Kathy said no because she'd been drinking. Then Nancy called the cops on Kathy and tried to say that she was afraid of her. But this plan backfired and Nancy was arrested for DUI. So that does answer your question.
Okay, there we go.
There's the arrest you were
There's
looking
the arrest.
for.
That was almost there.
Yeah. Nancy had to take classes and pay fines, which she blamed Kathy for. And even though she was super loaded, she insisted that Kathy repay her the $2,500 that she'd lost as a result of the incident. And Kathy eventually did it.
Ouch. That's kind of a mean thing to do when you're probably the one at fault here. But here's the other side of the story. Because the other side of the story is quite different. So the pair were drinking, they lost track of where they had left their car, and they wandered around looking for it without any luck. The two then made their way back to the bar and found a server who had just gotten off work. They asked him for help, and for the next hour, they walked around Glenwood Springs trying to find it. The server said the whole time, Kathy was yelling at Nancy or insulting her under her breath. Kathy was so drunk, she was barely coherent. Eventually, Nancy got someone to call the police, and she told them that she was afraid of Kathy, and she was worried she was going to try and hurt her.
Wow.
So based on that, obviously it seems like Kathy is the one at fault here potentially, or, you know, she's instigating the situation. And Nancy really got away with a lot of this sort of behavior, but it cost her some friends and it put distance between her and the friends that did stick around. Because I mean, it's like almost an abusive relationship, right?
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, there are lots of fancy parties in Aspen thrown by well-to-do townspeople and luxury magazines. And Nancy used to be invited to those kinds of parties, but eventually only her sisters started to get invited, and editors took Nancy off the list because they were worried drunk Nancy shows up and we got a real shit show here.
No pants Nance.
Yeah.
You know, things are going to get wild and out of control.
And I can't imagine what that's going to do to her mentally.
Yeah.
To not get invited to
Your
those
whole
parties.
life.
That's her life. It's not like she doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a socialite.
Yeah.
So that's what she does.
Yeah, it was a big hit to her ego, for sure.
Which is interesting because it also seems like she's trying to play both sides, right? She's trying to also be this like low key, down earth, chill, Prius driving, you know, kind of like hippie sort of person, but also wants to be on the other side of this high living socialite. So it's like, I guess the two can be together, but most of the time I think you would be two separate things, right? So it's like she's almost trying to like balance between these two different identities.
Yeah.
And both are important to her, right? Because of her, where she came from and her family. So,
yeah. Today's episode is brought to you by Stitch Fix, which is one of my favorite services out there. I have been a Stitch Fix user now for a few years, and I have it set for me personally to come every like 2 to 3 weeks. I have the maximum amount of boxes being sent to me because I really hate shopping. I hate going to the mall. I hate fitting rooms. I have like fitting room trauma. And so I love that they send me all these options, and whatever I don't like, I can send back. And as you know, the longer I've been on there, my stylist has really gotten to know me and what I like and what I don't like. And they seem to just really nail my style. I didn't even plan for this, but my entire outfit is from Stitch Fix, all different boxes that I've gotten at different times. My pants, my bodysuit, my little, what are these called? Jacket things.
Yeah, your drip is fire, man.
Thank you. Trying to step it up. Well, that's the thing is I really suck at fashion related things. So something like Stitch Fix really helps me, and I can customize what I'm looking for every time. So if lately I've just been wanting to get tops. So I've been like, no pants, no accessories. I just want shirts right now. I can always change it back. But that's really nice. If you have an event coming up, you can ask for a specific color or let them know where you're going. And you can even preview your stitch before they send it, your Stitch Fix box. And if there's things that you don't like that are put in there, you can have them taken out and they'll replace it. One of my favorite things about it is your stylist fee always is applied to your purchases. So essentially it's pays for itself, which I think is really cool about Stitch Fix. I really can't say enough good things about it. I love it.
They have over 1,000 brands and styles that they work with. So they've got something for everybody. I've actually used Stitch Fix before, and I was actually really impressed with how well they're able to kind of like stick to my style, because I'm very picky when it comes to my clothes.
You are.
And they actually nailed it right on the head a number of times. So I just ran out of closet space. So, but Kendall, she's got an endless closet, so she can keep adding to the collection.
Yeah, that's right. There's also no subscription required. You can simply refresh as needed or set it and forget it with regular seasonal fixes. You're in complete control. You can skip whenever you want. And like I said, one of the best parts about it is you can try it on at home before you buy. You keep what you love and you send everything back in a prepaid shipping envelope, and returns and exchanges are always free. It's a service I recommend to so many people. Just this morning, I was telling one of our employees, you got to get on Stitch Fix because I absolutely love it. So right now, Stitch Fix is offering our listeners $20 off their first fix at stitchfix.com/milehigher. That's stitchfix.com/milehigher for $20 off today. stitchfix.com/milehigher. So over time, many people believe that Nancy started hanging out with seedier and seedier people, some that were possibly even dangerous. And that was because she was alienating a lot of her friends in Aspen. But make no mistake, she still had friends. Nancy knew how to throw a party. And if you wanted an interesting night, you'd put her on the list to invite to yours as well. And plenty of people did.
So when you say seedier and seedier, does that mean just like people in like a different crowd? Like the wrong crowd?
Yeah.
Or
like kind of dicey individuals.
Who
might
Little
be
sketchy.
dangerous. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Which I think you could take with a grain of salt, right?
Right.
Like what? That's kind of
What does that mean?
blanket term.
Does seedy mean sketchy or does seedy mean lower class?
Yeah,
Right.
and,
Oh,
and
that's
that's
true
what
too.
people could have meant by that.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure, but
Right.
that's just what people were saying.
Right.
Because obviously somewhere like Aspen, you've got all of these really, really rich people, but then you've got the people that serve the rich and work in the hotels, restaurants, bars, things like that.
So her friends, her Aspen socialite friends could have been like, oh, they're seedy people.
That makes sense.
Just hanging out with the waitresses.
Yeah, exactly. That could have kind of been what it was.
Okay.
I think it's that. And it's also, Nancy was the type of person to literally come up to a random person on the street and like start talking to you and like hang out. Like I read some story, this journalist met her in town and they made eye contact and she was eating Chinese food, and without a word, she literally walked up to him and like put a chopstick thing full of Chinese food in his mouth. And like, that's how they met and became friends. So
Interesting.
It's like really just, you know,
super social.
Yeah. Captivating kind of energy. Cause who does that? You know, it's
Yeah.
intriguing, but I think at the same time, she might've been too trusting.
Yeah.
Right. Divulging too much information to potentially the wrong person, right? Puts yourself at risk.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of explains.
And many of these new people that she was hanging out with had different paths in life by that point. Kids, families, work, stuff like that. And they couldn't just fly out to a different country on a whim like Nancy did. Speaking of which, Nancy was preparing to go to Australia for the winter. Very nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
She usually spent each winter somewhere warm and then let other people stay in her house. So she was just looking for someone to rent the house while she was out and just needed some help preparing for the trip. So Nancy put an ad in the paper looking for a tenant. And in October of 2013, she got a response, and it was from a couple in Denver, 65-year-old Trey Styler and his wife, 62-year-old Nancy. Like we said, yes, they have the same name, so we'll try not to make this too confusing for you guys. So Nancy and William Trey Styler were an eccentric couple from Denver, Greenwood Village, to be precise, another area we're very familiar with. And once upon a time, they were rich, and they had a very fancy house to match. Their tastes were very new money, and their lives were comfortable. Their house was full of fake flowers, white leather couches, massage chairs, fake rock waterfalls.
Dang.
Yeah, kind of an interesting style. And it was all decorated in pinks and lavenders. And Nancy had long Dolly Parton blonde hair and long acrylic nails.
So we're going to refer to the new Nancy as Nancy S, so you don't get confused. But Nancy S was a full-time botanist who grew Amazonian water lilies. She founded the Victoria Conservatory and sold lilies to the Denver Botanical Gardens, as well as the University of Denver. Trey, on the other hand, was the chief of staff at St. Joseph's Hospital's anesthesiology department. He was paid very well, and he was a trust fund kid, so he had a decent nest egg as well. Nancy S. didn't come from money, but she quickly grew accustomed to the luxury that comes along with being with a doctor. A photographer named Povey Kendall Atchison spent a lot of time photographing the Stylers in their gardens, and this was right around the time that the Stylers ran into some serious problems. Povey said that the Stylers had always been a little off, which is a nice way to put it. But when they ran out of money, they stopped seeming like good people. When Trey was diagnosed with a neurological disorder thought to be a milder form of ALS, he had to step down from his position. Trey had also been suing his former employer because he accused the employer of stealing software that he created. But the lawsuit went south, and Trey had been paying a lawyer who repeatedly missed deadlines and failed to file motions, and it got bad enough that he ended up losing the case because of his lawyer, essentially.
Okay.
That sucks.
What's even worse, though, is that Trey had actually been sending this lawyer tens of thousands of dollars at the time. The lawyer even convinced Trey to take out a new credit card and pay him 30 grand from it. But in total, this lawyer swindled over $670,000 from him.
Oh my gosh. It's like the Tinder swindler.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
That really put them into financial ruin. They had to file another lawsuit in order to get the money back from their former lawyer. And then they also had to sell their $2.2 million house in Greenwood Village in order to avoid going into foreclosure. So things just absolutely fell apart for them.
Trey was awarded $800,000 in the lawsuit against his former attorney, but the attorney declared bankruptcy, and now Trey couldn't collect that money. And as you can imagine, Trey was distraught to the point where he was actually talking about suicide.
Oh.
Yeah. So the Stylers took what little money they had left and planned to start fresh with a new business. And like most rational, realistic people who are strapped for cash, they decided the best place to start over was Aspen, Colorado.
Oh my God.
Just the most expensive town in Colorado. You know.
So they were going to build an aesthetics spa there. I don't know what an aesthetic spa is. I was going to ask about this.
Is it Botox, laser?
Oh,
it's like a med spa.
Like a med spa.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Which is great for Aspen, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It is not a bad idea.
I'd imagine, though, at the time, someone has probably already hopped on that trip by then, right? Like,
Yeah. They'd probably be
It
competing.
was like the first thing in town was a grocery store and a med spa.
Yeah, and a med
Joe's.
spa.
Yes.
Trader Joe's and a med spa.
Yeah. Your Botox.
My two favorite places.
And your bananas. Yeah.
So before they moved to Aspen, they had moved to Castle Rock, Colorado, and apparently they left because they suffered a near fatal carbon monoxide poisoning situation at their rental.
They're just really down on their luck.
Majorly.
That's scary though, man. That's like one of the things that absolutely terrifies me.
Oh,
is
me
like
too.
carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Silent killer, man.
Yeah.
Make sure you got your carbon monoxide detectors working and on. Seriously, like
Yeah, go check them right now.
Go check them right now. Pause the episode and go check.
Anyway, so they're going to start this med spa situation. And of course, they had to start taking laser classes, and they bought a bunch of fancy equipment to run the place. Their dream was to make their spa the Mountain Oasis Spa, which would be kind of top of the line luxury destination in Aspen. Nancy S. was also going to work as a seamstress. So they had a bunch of sewing equipment as well. They needed a place to stay though, so they got to searching. And this is how they connected with the other Nancy Pfister. And there are different accounts about exactly how they first met. Some say that the Stylers answered Nancy Pfister's rental ad. Others say that they met at Hotel Jerome, maybe in that J Bar, RJ. What was it called?
J Bar.
Yeah.
J Bar?
J Bar.
Yeah.
But regardless, Nancy Pfister needed tenants to watch her house while she was in Australia from November to May. And the Stylers needed a place to stay. So it was a perfect deal. One too good to be true, perhaps.
I think it's kind of interesting that she needed someone to watch her house because she doesn't need the money.
Right.
Obviously, right? But she just wanted it to, I don't know, be occupied, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe she does, though. I think
maybe she does need the money, you're saying?
Yeah. Like, I think that sometimes you look at Aspenites and you're like, oh, wow, they are just so, but maybe she spends a lot of money. Maybe she could use the money, you know?
You never know. You do never know. It's true.
And sometimes really wealthy people are cash poor, right?
Right.
Like they've got their, wealth in investments and real estate. Like that's what I think is a lot of her wealth was actually wrapped up in like property and things like that. So it wasn't like she had just like cash at her disposal all the time, which I mean, we don't know exactly how much was in her bank account, but we do know that cash was kind of an issue. So she really did need to rent it out. Otherwise, like why let random people move into your nice house?
Exactly.
Right? If you don't need the cash, then what's the point?
Right.
Somebody could potentially ruin your house.
Which kind of lines up with how she, went after Kathy for the $2,500 from the DUI. Yeah. It's like not that much to such a wealthy person, but yeah.
So the deal was this. The Stylers could live in Nancy's home and operate their med spa seamstress business out of it while she was in Australia for 6 months. But the deal was that they'd have to take care of Nancy's golden doodle.
Good old
Gabe, which you guys know about golden doodles.
Good old Daisy.
That's Daisy.
Can you imagine just like finding a tenant and then also leaving your dog? Like the dog comes with the place.
Right.
Yeah. You're renting the house, but take care of my dog.
Yeah. That's why it doesn't make sense. I'm like, what? And leaving the dog at the same time?
Yeah, you'd have to be like so picky about who you have to. I like would not trust people to watch my dogs.
Well, think about it too. Like, I think she kind of thought that these guys were going to be good tenants, right? Because it's like, here's this doctor, this anesthesiologist.
Yeah.
And like, how honest were they about how their life was spiraling when they were looking for it? They just needed to get up there. So my guess is Nancy was like, oh, perfect. I found this, this doctor and this, med spa person. So this is perfect. Like, they'll fit right in here and, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So the rent would be $4,000 a month plus utilities for Nancy's 3-bed, 3.5 bath, 3,000 square foot private mountain home on 36.5 acres of land. So pretty nice. And this was a deal though for Aspen. You can't even rent a studio apartment there for that price, much less an entire house on the mountain.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about before, the Zillow price for it now is over $12 million. So it's gone up quite a bit since then. But the rent would be paid to Kathy, who would hold on to the money while Nancy was out of town. And Kathy would act as sort of a go-between with, Nancy and the Stylers. So it's kind of like, Airbnb, you got like the host. That's like, the local host or whatever, if it's like an investment property. That's kind of what Kathy was doing. She's going to kind of keep an eye on things and, be there locally for Nancy. So Nancy actually offered to give the Stylers 1 month free rent. The conditions were that Nancy S. would still be in the house for the time being, and the Stylers would help her pack and prepare for her trip. So now, I'll give you a month free, but you got to come help me pack.
This is weird. They got some weird stuff going on here.
Yeah.
Very, very weird. So Nancy Pfister, always an idealist, told the Stylers that meeting them was karma. The Stylers agreed to her terms, and they were very excited to move in and get started on their new lives. But keep in mind, there was no rental agreement or contract drawn up. So big opportunity for issues to arise there. Everything was an oral or verbal agreement and not in writing, which is never good. The world is already expensive as it is. The last thing you want to be dealing with, on top of paying higher prices for everyday items, is dealing with paying off debt. How many of you wish there was a better solution to paying off your debt? PDS Debt has customized 0% interest options for anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. With rising interest rates and the cost of living at an all-time high, now's the time to finally take initiative with your debt. Stop waiting and start saving with your own custom debt savings options from PDS Debt.
PDS Debt is giving our qualified listeners a free debt savings analysis just for completing the 30-second online debt assessment at pdsdebt.com/mh. You'll receive a full breakdown on how to save on interest each month and the quickest way to take care of your debt. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't going down, this program is for you. PDS Debt rolls all of your payments into one low 0% interest monthly payment. Makes it so much easier to get that debt paid off faster. Everyone with over $10,000 or more in debt qualifies, and there is no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit accepted. Save thousands in interest and fees and pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. If you're somebody out there who wants to pay off their debt, PDS Debt has a great option for you to see how quick you could become debt-free. PDS Debt is offering free debt analysis to our listeners just for completing the quick and easy debt assessment at www.pdsdebt.com/mh. That's pdsdebt.com/mh. Take back your financial freedom today by visiting pdsdebt.com/mh.
So the first day that the Stylers met Nancy, she actually greeted them wearing nothing but her robe and a string of pearls. While
no Nance pants.
That's exactly.
Oh, wait. No pants Nance.
No Nance pants.
And she was just standing there holding a glass of pink champagne. So definitely living the fine life. And they thought that was a little odd, but the Stylers just figured her to be a rich, eccentric type. But things got worse, and life at Nancy's was not good. Nancy proved to be a terror of a landlord. She walked around naked, drunk, and irritable, and she treated the Stylers as servants. This is the wording they actually used, servants. Nancy Styler said that after only a few days, Nancy Pfister would order her around, tell her to get her cigarettes, her drinks, this or that, and Kathy tried to reassure the Stylers that this was just the way Nancy was. She meant well, but sometimes she could be a bit much for people who didn't know her all that well. Sounds like a little bit too much for me. I can't even imagine.
I feel like I'd be like, I'm out.
Yeah,
there's
what?
no way I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And Nancy was very excited to go on her trip to Australia. She would be studying permaculture in Byron Bay and staying with a 74-year-old dentist who reminded her of her father. And Nancy loved Australia because who doesn't? Have you guys ever been to Australia?
We have not. Have you guys?
Yeah. It was amazing.
I am jealous.
It's
a cool country.
Probably the best week of our lives.
Yeah.
It is very cool. So she was actually considering making a permanent move out there, which that crossed our minds while we were there as well.
Yeah, it was hard to leave.
It's that awesome.
It's beautiful.
Was she like dating this guy that she was going to live with?
I mean, I don't know if they...
Doesn't really say.
It wasn't like a formal relationship. I don't even think...
I guess she's going to stay with him, so...
Yeah, I think it was just friendly.
It was. She had like a different kind of boyfriend playing out there.
Right. Okay. Yes. So, yeah, they were just friendly with each other.
And she is free-spirited, I forget, so...
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. But as the weeks went on, she was running into issues with the Stylers. Finally, the Stylers thought they had a chance to breathe once Nancy left for Australia. You know, they were off the hook as far as being servants. But they quickly noticed that the house was not in perfect condition, to say the least. Literally, the stove didn't work, the dishwasher didn't work, and the hot water was rusty.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Basically, she didn't cook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a...
dishwasher doesn't work, stove doesn't work, the water's rusty.
And she's like, it's all good. It works for me.
She's clearly not there eating home-cooked meals probably very often, if that's the case. Unless that was a recent issue, which it might have been, But the Stylers wanted these issues fixed, obviously. Like, why would you go rent a place and you can't use the stove dishwasher and your water's rusty? I mean, come on, I would probably start withholding my rent as well. So that's what they did.
Sure.
They said they would pay the money once those things were fixed. They'd already paid Nancy a month and a half's rent up front, $6,000. So they needed to pay another $6,000 in order to be paid up for 3 months or until February 22nd. Kathy arranged the repairs and the Stylers paid her the $6,000 they owed. And in a December 31st email from Trey to Kathy, he said they were paid in full through February 22nd. Kathy emailed Nancy Pfister on January 3rd, telling her the Stylers were paid through February 22nd, plus an additional $650 Trey had paid in utilities. And that money was in her safety deposit box at Alpine Bank. But things were now very tense. Nancy was very mad about these late payments, and she wanted the Stylers out. She was considering them squatters even, and con men. who were taking advantage of her willingness to help them out. So immediately jumps to that, of course. Nancy Styler had used one of Nancy Pfister's credit cards and actually racked up $670 in charges. And I mean, that would make anybody mad, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like your tenant found a credit card and we're using your credit card.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's
free
a little
money.
weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as you can imagine, like for Nancy Pfister, this like enraged her. I mean, this is just fueling this fire and vendetta she has against the Stylers. But the Stylers had also been using her car, and she actually emailed Trey about it on December 12th. And this is a quote from that email. It says, Nancy Styler charged almost $670 to my card. No cash for the rest of our agreements. Expect to hear from my lawyer. You guys have a lot of nerve to move in with no payments, making me upset. I have other people to take care of, Gabe. Better get a moving truck and return to Denver.
That's a little weird that they were using her car.
Yeah.
Like her card, I mean, that's weird, obviously, but they found it. I mean, I guess I can comprehend it. Not saying I would do it, but comprehend, you know. But
don't leave your card around there.
Yeah, don't leave your cards around here.
Where's my wallet?
Yeah. But car, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's weird.
Well, and I think, you know, we see how Nancy reacted with her really good friend Kathy during their little fight, you know, and she made Kathy pay back. So now imagine that tenfold with her tenants that she's not even good friends with. She doesn't have a history with.
She sees them as servants.
Yes.
So they meant nothing to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was pissed. And these emails continued back and forth, and it was driving the Stylers crazy. And on February 17th, Trey emailed Nancy back, and he told her that she was repaid for the clothes that his wife had bought because they had bought her $1,000 worth of champagne that they weren't paid back for. He also wrote, be careful what you ask for. You may get more than you expect. Meanwhile, the Stylers accused Nancy Pfister of spreading vicious lies about them on Facebook and over email. Finally, it was bad enough that the Stylers threw in the towel. They decided they were going to be leaving the house, and they fully moved out on February 22nd. As of recently, Nancy was starting to run low on money. And this was part of the reason that she decided to rent her house out. And her not having enough money to stay in Australia was potentially one of the reasons why her trip was cut about 3 months short, since she was planning on staying until May 22nd. So she decides to return from Australia early to evict the Stylers and collect 3 months of rent that she claimed was unpaid. In reality, the Stylers had paid, but now Nancy was out a tenant for the next 3 months. So in a sense, she's out $12,000. Nancy told Kathy that she wanted the Stylers out of the house. And to be more specific, she said, kick those fuckers out.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But it appeared that Kathy and the Stylers had developed sort of a friendship while she was gone. Based on their disagreements with Nancy Pfister, they could kind of relate to each other. Mm-hmm.
On Facebook, Nancy posted this message, quote, I'd like to stay in Australia, but the people that were supposedly taking care of my house are not doing what they said they would do. And they're not paying rent, and they haven't paid utilities. So the Stylers did end up moving out of Nancy's house, and they ended up moving into the Aspen Lodge, a motel in nearby Basalt that cost $119 a night. The situation was putting an incredible strain on them. Trey had been making suicidal remarks since before they had moved to Aspen, but now Nancy Styler was too, and he was concerned. So things are just getting worse and worse for them. On February 22nd, 2014, Nancy arrived back in Aspen from Australia. This was the same day that the Stylers were supposed to be fully moved out, but they weren't. According to Kathy, Nancy Pfister was mad about it, but she more or less accepted it. She was demanding $14,000 in unpaid rent, utilities, and property damages from the Stylers before they could come back to the house to get their spa equipment. So they have all this expensive equipment there, and Nancy's like holding it hostage.
That sucks.
I also feel like the number just keeps suspiciously getting higher of what they owe her. Like every time she talks, she's like, wait, no, now it's this. Now it's this.
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if she came back. She's like, oh, you guys broke the stove. You broke the dishwasher. The water's rusty. What are you guys doing here? Like,
right.
Because there was no formal tenant agreement signed with like all the formalities for that. It was just kind of like, oh, you watch my house. Cool. You pay me. Cool. And then none of that happened. And now she's pissed. So Kathy picked Nancy up from the airport, and Nancy asked Kathy to stay the weekend at her place, which she did. She said the weekend was pleasant and it was good to have her home. On the morning of the 24th, Kathy left the house. But before she did, she left a sign up for any potential visitors that said, do not disturb Nancy sleeping. Nancy was still very jet lagged from her trip home, and by that morning, she was finally able to get some rest.
So this was the last time that Kathy said she saw Nancy Pfister. Nancy Styler had actually messaged Kathy as early as February 21st, saying she hadn't seen or heard from Nancy Pfister. Nancy Styler even speculated to Kathy that maybe Nancy Pfister had killed herself in the following days. So right here, the story has conflicts already. Also, why is Nancy S. already speculating that Nancy Pfister has killed herself? Doesn't that seem a little unusual to jump to that conclusion?
Who says that when you don't even know what led you to get there?
Right.
Yeah, sounds like she's trying to plant some seeds.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
that's what it sounds like. The Stylers said they had the legal right to get their stuff back, which they did, of course. So they came back to the property with a police officer there to supervise on February 24th. They wanted the cop there in case Nancy Pfister tried giving them any issues. But it turns out they wouldn't need him. They loaded up their stuff until 4 p.m. with no sign of Nancy there. They hadn't heard from her, and they noticed that the dog hadn't been let out.
Which is sad.
I know.
That's horrible.
I know. Nancy Styler said she did notice a foul odor coming from Nancy Pfister's bedroom closet, but she didn't think anything of it. But it was concerning enough for her to call Kathy about it.
So there's a couple weird things here.
Yes.
And I'm going back to what Garrett said, planting seeds.
Yep.
Because, of course, she's like, oh, we're going to need a police officer to go up there with us because Nancy's going to give us hell, to get our stuff out of there. Then conveniently, they're like, oh, no, it was actually fine. There was no issues whatsoever. Weirdly, the dog was still inside, not let out. But we just, we just casually packed up all of our stuff. And
there was a horrendous smell, but...
Yeah, weird. Sometimes it smells bad, like...
We'll have Kathy take care of it. No need for us to go look and check it out.
Exactly.
Very
super sketch already.
Very sketch.
So on February 26, 2014, Kathy got a call from the Stylers, and they said they were going to Nancy Pfister's house that evening to pick up some trash bags that they left outside the house. But Kathy would get to the house first when she went to pick up Gabe. Kathy also noticed that the dog hadn't been let out, and now she was concerned. And earlier, Nancy Styler had informed her that the foul smell was coming from the closet. Kathy hadn't been able to get a hold of Nancy for days at this point, so she starts searching the house.
Yep. So that's super weird. Like if you went back, just put yourself in this situation. If you went back to a house to get your stuff because you had been kicked out or whatever, and you notice a foul smell coming from,
I would open the door immediately. I
feel like anybody would. That'd just be like instinct to go be like, oh, what is that? You know, is it dog poop or what's going on? And you would go and actually seek out the smell. But the fact that it's just like, oh yeah,
smells bad.
Yeah,
we
smells
just
bad.
mentioned this, yeah.
And then they didn't even bother. Like, why not bother to let the dog out? You were just there.
Yeah,
it's weird. Let the dog out real quick. They didn't do that either.
Especially when they were taking care of the dog for a while. So it's not like they're new to doing that.
You didn't grow attached to this dog at all while you were watching him.
You don't feel bad for it when you go there and it needs to go outside or it's like urinating all over the place. Like, very, very suspicious stuff going on here. When Kathy entered Nancy's bedroom, that worry quickly turned into panic. There was a blood smear on her headboard. And there was this, again, horrible smell coming from the closet. Kathy tried opening the door, but it was locked, apparently. So she raced to her house in order to grab a spare key for it. She raced up the stairs, unlocked the closet door, and was hit with an atrocious stench.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you know where that's going.
And that's when, inside of Nancy's bedroom closet, she found Nancy's body wrapped in a sheet. Kathy was immediately in a state of shock and hysteria. She ran to her car and sped off in the direction of the police station. On her way, she called 911 screaming and sobbing.
Which, right away, why, whoever did this, I'll find out, why would the body be in the closet? Like, out of all places, why are you putting the body back in the closet where she lives? I don't know. I think it's kind of weird.
Like, well, is it possible that she was killed in the closet?
True.
But, fully killed. Obviously, things started in the bed.
I see what you're saying.
But maybe it continued on into the closet,
It
or
could
they
be.
moved her there
Yeah,
in
it
a
just
weird
seems
attempt to conceal.
Yeah, so it's like if you're going to move to the closet, why not move her somewhere else, I guess is what I'm saying, you know?
Or it was just all part of a diabolical plan that they knew they were going to have the police officer come up. They were hoping that he would find her. He didn't. So then they called Kathy, hoping that then Kathy would go over and find her.
That's true.
So they didn't have to be the one to find the body.
I think to answer your question about the closet is because whoever did this is trying to stage a suicide.
Yeah.
And people commit
That
suicide
is
in the
place.
closet where they hang themselves in the closet. So I think that's the thought behind this, is that it's supposed to look like a suicide.
Makes sense.
Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering there's blood
on the
smeared
bed.
on the headboard. But, you know.
They tried, I guess.
Exactly.
That's what it seems like.
So we actually have a part of that 911 call that we're going to play right now.
Yeah, and definitely take note of Kathy and how she sounds on this call, and I want to hear your thoughts after this.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
911, what is the address of the emergency?
Help me. Oh my God. Oh.
What is the address of the emergency?
He came in and he was fucking no clothes.
Is that a house, business, or apartment?
It's a house. It's Nancy Pfister's house. My bed.
Ma'am, tell me exactly what happened.
My friend had. I got my bed in the closet.
Ma'am, tell me exactly what happened.
My friend came back from Australia, Nancy Pfister, and she had some people living there. She really pissed them off, and she made threats to them about owing money, and I don't know what I couldn't find her. She didn't call, and these people said the dog has been in the house and she hasn't been around. And so I went up there to get the dog, and I was looking for her.
I need you to tell me exactly what happened.
I can't. My friend is in her closet, dead.
In her closet?
Yes.
Okay, stay on the line with me. We're going to send help that way.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's insane. She definitely, I mean, I don't think it was her.
My first gut reaction is that was genuine.
Yeah.
Interesting. I agree with you guys. Josh and I are a little torn on Kathy.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So what are your thoughts, Josh?
I mean, from that 911 call, I definitely think there's some genuine emotion there. Although the circumstances of how this, now that we know kind of how it all unfolded is a little odd. And just some of the things she says, I think are, and again, it's hard, right? When people are in these situations, you never know if this is just like genuine reactions to trauma that they just saw,
right,
or if people are trying to fake emotions in order to paint a picture for the authorities. And I think after hearing that again, I'm slowly moving away from her being involved, but I'm still suspicious because I do feel like there's still some possible motive for her to be involved in some way in this, whether it's because the thing about it is it almost seems like she's trying to tell dispatch, like, hey, it's these two people
immediately
that,
were,
she pissed these people off.
Yeah. Which is a sign. It is. Like that is, I mean, if you were in a cop looking or a detective looking at this, you would say the fact that she immediately took blame off herself and pointed it at someone else is a sign of suspicion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most people in that situation, and I mean most, obviously it's quite possible this came to her mind, but oftentimes we see things where people start setting it up ahead of time.
Right.
It reminds me of even Alec Murdaugh. Did you guys follow that?
Yeah.
Immediately when police are called, he's talking about the boat accident and how all these people were out to get him. And that's the first thing on his mind. So I mean, it is suspicious.
Because for me, like, I'm thinking I would just be explaining my actions that just happened like 5 seconds ago, not instantly launching into this like historical account of everything that's been happening to Nancy Pfister in this sort of moment. You know what I mean? It's almost like it just doesn't seem natural to me to go to that place where you would be like, oh yeah, she just got back from Australia and she's been fighting with these people that are renting her house. Versus just being like immediately, I just went into her house. I found her dead body in the closet.
Yeah.
And just like staying on that point. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened, but instead is already insinuating a different narrative going on. So something, I mean, could be completely genuine, but I do find it a little suspicious.
I mean, we're like both really torn on it. We were talking about it earlier, us for the Mile Higher crew as well. And it seems like the majority of us lean towards Kathy not having involvement, but there is a lot of suspicion from people in general, but also experts in the case. And we'll get into more of that later.
Yeah.
But right off the bat, for me, that reaction is just, she sounds so fucking traumatized that I can't, it's very hard. And, you know, I've watched a lot of interviews with her on like Dateline and True Crime Daily. And to me, she's always come across as
genuine,
like really in pain and
but people can,
people
you're right.
are sociopaths.
I'm curious to see where the case goes because like Kendall said, like it did seem, it seems genuine, but maybe I'd just be a bad detective.
I know. Sometimes I think I would too.
Don't let me be a police officer because I'd be like, oh, I believe you.
I'm such an empath. If people are crying and I'm that traumatized and upset, like I just instantly would believe that. I would probably be a bad investigator in that sense.
I will say 911 calls are so hard because how people react in trauma is so unique and hard. And I think that we used to be like, oh, that was the wrong reaction. He must be guilty. She must be guilty. But, you know, we had a little scare in January and Garrett had to call 911 and it was really, really scary.
Oh my God.
And I will say, if you went back and listened to his 911 call, let's just hope I never get murdered because they will immediately suspect Garrett because on the call, he's like, my wife just says she can't breathe.
Yeah, it was pretty calm.
He's like so casual. He was so casual. Like I was having
that's a good point.
A pure crisis and Garrett was like, I don't know. She just says she can't breathe. Here's our address. Here's this. Like he was so,
which is good. That's a good skill to have, especially if you guys ever want to have kids.
Like you didn't act like you were in any type of dire situation.
I guess you just never know how people react.
I think it's so true. Traditionally in true crime, people are judged very much on their reactions to things, but in times of trauma, everyone just reacts differently. Yeah, so it's super hard to say.
I'm curious to see the evidence because this will be interesting.
Oh yeah,
I have two other things as I'm sitting here listening and thinking. With Kathy, so you walk in, you go to your friend's house to, you know, supposedly check on the dog, right? Which I'm like, the timing of everything is very interesting to me. She goes in, she finds her friend dead in the closet. Her first gut reaction is to run out of the house, get in the car and drive away from the house. One could say maybe she wasn't able to call from the house, but that seems very weird to me. You know, someone say, well, her house is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. She didn't have a way to call. There's no service, whatever it may be. But she drives and then she ends up like pulling over and that's where she calls. And then she just like stays there until the cops get there and the cops are talking to her. But the fact she flees the scene is a little interesting to me.
Yeah, I think it's a little odd.
Versus staying there with your friend or at the house and, you know, and maybe she was just scared and like ran out or something like that.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, from my perspective, I would take off. I'd be so freaked out. I'd want to get the fuck out of that house as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's also on that side of things, you could think, is the killer still here?
Yep.
There's somebody dead in the closet because I think it's kind of staged to look like a suicide, but if you found somebody wrapped up in the closet, I don't think people are going to necessarily immediately go to that. They're going to think somebody killed her. And obviously she saw the blood on the headboard.
Yeah.
So maybe it was like, I need to get out of here. I'm scared because there could be a killer here that could kill me as well. So she's trying to flee the area.
Yeah. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my whole soul is trying to run away right now because this is too much trauma. Like I physically can't handle this. So I'm just going to go get in my car.
As far away from it as possible.
On Hereditary when he just like continues home. Yeah. That's me. Like I'm just like, I just need to get out of this situation.
Yeah. I think I would be the same way.
Yeah.
It was also kind of interesting. She said, my friend. I don't know. I guess that's just interesting verbiage to me. She's like, my friend was killed.
No. She has to explain to a stranger.
I guess that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Welcome to our podcast where we just disagree the whole time. Play devil's advocate the whole time.
We do that a lot too. I think that's what makes these couple podcasts interesting.
Agreed.
So the police obviously immediately rushed to the house, and that's where they found Nancy's body in the closet. Kathy was so hysterical that she had to be taken to the hospital and sedated.
Wow.
Well, that tells you a lot too. I mean, she's freaking out. Really traumatized.
There wasn't a lot of visible blood at the scene, barely any actually, just that small smear on the headboard.
And it is small. Like we didn't clarify earlier. It's pretty tiny.
It's not a lot of blood. But what was weird is that her mattress had actually been flipped over to conceal a blood pool beneath it. So,
which I don't know what their thought process behind that was.
Yeah. Like they're just going to lift up. If you walk in and see a bed flipped over, you're going to flip the bed back, right?
Just touching more things for DNA.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nancy was covered in a blanket, a towel, and a white bed sheet. And investigators said it was hard to determine how the body was positioned when they first walked in. But there was the unmistakable stench of death. Nancy's neck had been covered with a towel. A heavy-duty yellow extension cord was then wrapped around the towel and her neck. And her body was wrapped from the shoulders down in a heavy-duty trash bag. And her head was covered in 2 white kitchen bags, which...
It's just not saying suicide.
No. I mean, that's not typical for somebody committing suicide that way.
Yeah, if someone's really trying to stage it, obviously they're doing a rush job. They're not really thinking it through. If that was even
like the
their
trash
plan.
bags? What's up with that?
Yeah.
There would be no point to doing that if you're going to hang yourself or something. But she had died from blunt force trauma. Her manner of death was homicide, and someone had brutally beaten her head with a hammer.
Gosh.
I know. It's really hard to think about.
What's even harder is that she had no defensive wounds. So whoever did this probably did it while she was sleeping.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely horrible. No way to even defend yourself.
Yeah.
You're just killed while you sleep.
And what's kind of interesting about that is Nancy was known for really liking her sleep. Like she didn't want anyone to ever bother her. She would put on the eye mask, the earbuds, and be like, do not call me, do not interrupt me for any reason. And so she was probably like peacefully in her sleep and had no idea.
Oh, that's horrible.
I know.
So with that being said, did a killer know that? And did they take advantage of the fact that Nancy just came home from Australia, would likely be catching up on sleep?
The sign on the door too that said like, don't bother me.
She would be vulnerable.
I'm sleeping.
Yep.
Right.
Maybe someone who had lived with her for a period of time.
Or was the best friend.
Yeah.
And how did they get in? Because there were no signs of forced entry in the house.
Right.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
But there's been keys handed out
everywhere. Yeah.
Could they have made
have
a
a
copy
key?
of the key? Could they have just held on to the key? So how'd they get in?
So later that night, starting at 7:56 p.m., Nancy Styler made a flurry of calls, 13 different calls to 6 different people, including Kathy and Kathy's mother. They had gone to the house, like she said, to pick up those bags, but the sight of all those police vehicles had spooked them, according to her.
And as soon as this news broke, I mean, this shook the town of Aspen. Like, people were shocked that Nancy Pfister was found dead in her house in this horrible, gruesome way. And I had read that it was the first murder that happened in over a decade in the town. And what's interesting is Aspen actually, like relative to Colorado, has a higher crime rate than the majority of the state. However, that's like more so property crime. So violent crime is like pretty low in Aspen. So again, this just like blew people away.
Well, I'd imagine, from the way it's being described, she knew a lot of people.
She did.
Because she wasn't prejudiced. She just kind of talked to anyone,
And people just knew of
her too. So I'm sure it was one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, my brother's mom saw her at a party once.
Yeah.
She was sitting on her stepfather's sister's lap, husband's lap.
Or people just knew her connection to Buttermilk Mountain and her dad and everything.
Yeah.
So it was shocking for sure. So obviously the police immediately began to hunt for Nancy's killer, and they immediately began to suspect both the Stylers and Kathy Carpenter. And the main reason being, of course, there was a very heated dispute going on between Nancy Pfister and the Stylers. That and the fact that they had been living in the house and had the keys to the place.
I'm sure that it's also suspected because Nancy had taken this public on Facebook.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So when you're like, oh, she's fighting with these people on Facebook, and then the next day she's dead.
It's documented online.
Yeah.
So for the next week, the police put the 3 of them on surveillance. The next morning at 5:30 a.m., the police executed a search warrant at the Stylers' motel room. They found Trey lying in bed, looking very frail and in poor health. They then handcuffed the couple and took them in for interrogation.
Interesting.
Yep. So the police said they wanted to talk to her about a body found at 1833 West Buttermilk. But Nancy said she had no idea what they were talking about, even after they gave the address. So
and she saw the police cars when they went to pick up the bag.
Yeah. Right. Like, and it's just talk of the town at that point. She probably knew.
So why is she skirting those questions there? Why not just be honest? Be like, oh yeah, we were headed back over there to go pick up the rest of our stuff, and there was police vehicles.
Yeah,
there.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
What do you mean?
Like
never
heard of her before.
Know
actually,
nothing of that place. Yeah.
She claims that it was only when she heard the names of Nancy Pfister's sisters on the police radio that she realized that something may have happened to Nancy. So Nancy S. tells the police that she was shocked that they wanted to talk to her. She told them she had nothing to do with the body found in the house, but she said that she thought that Nancy Pfister had committed suicide. She brought that up.
Again. That's so weird.
Which obviously investigators are like, ding, ding, ding.
Red flag all over the place. This
is very strange.
Yeah.
For sure.
The deputy DA was really struck during this interrogation with how Nancy Styler just couldn't stop talking about how much of a horrible person she thought Nancy Pfister was. Nancy Styler called her a liar, an alcoholic, and the most self-loathing person she'd ever met. She said she treated her like a slave, called her and Trey trailer trash, and said they belonged in a trailer park in Basalt. Nancy Styler told the deputy that not one person said a nice thing about her, and she insisted, quote, I have never been disrespected by anyone in my life as much as I've been disrespected by this woman.
Which, don't you think that is strange? Even if she's not involved, if you get called in for someone's murder, and obviously, first of all, it's just insensitive and weird timing to start talking shit about them, even if you feel like she deserved it.
Yeah.
But also, it's making you look more and more guilty.
And I think it would just be more normal to be like, listen, we've had our problems. Like, I don't think she's a very good person, but I don't, like watch an episode of CSI.
Yeah.
And then just do what they do when they hate them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like she's incriminating herself by saying these things, because it's like almost giving the police motive for her to potentially want to do harm to her. Like, oh, you hate her that much? And, she's explaining all of the animosity that they have between each other. We actually have a clip of Nancy Styler talking about Nancy Pfister. Let's play it.
She was on Facebook saying awful things about us. You're liars, you're cheats, you owe me money for this, you owe me money for that.
I think that I was very honest with them when they said to me, did you like her? And I said, no, I hated her.
You said more than that. You said she's a liar, she's an alcoholic.
She disrespected me like no other person has ever done. And that was all honest. What was I supposed to say? No, I never said that. I did say it. But that doesn't mean I was going to kill her.
Dang, she's bitter.
Yeah.
Very,
you
very
can just
bitter.
hear it in her voice. Like, she really does not like Nancy Pfister. On the 27th and the 28th, both Trey and Kathy took police polygraph exams. They were asked about their involvement in Nancy's death, and the polygraph examiner said that both of their exams showed deception, which, again, polygraph tests are not admissible in court.
Yeah.
People, can dupe them, and things can, seem like it's deceptive, but it's not. It's very controversial.
Yeah.
But if you, sometimes they are accurate. And if that's the case, both of them show deception. That's concerning, right?
Yeah. Failed like miserably.
Yeah. We talk about polygraphs all the time on the podcast.
Same.
Because I tell him if something happens to me, please don't take a polygraph.
Don't take a polygraph.
I know Garrett will just fail one. I know it.
That's funny.
Later that day, Nancy Pfister's handyman and close friend paid Nancy and Trey a visit at the Aspen Lodge. And Nancy Styler kept telling the handyman how much she hated Nancy Pfister. It made the handyman so uncomfortable that he decided to leave. So you can, from that clip you just saw, you can imagine how irate she probably was talking about Nancy. Nancy Styler was very open about how much she disliked Nancy Pfister. To this day, she openly states that she absolutely hated her. Multiple times, Nancy Styler told Kathy that she wanted to kill Nancy Pfister. She said the three of them would make jokes about it.
The three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of weird.
Josh.
The three. See?
The three.
I know that.
Why participate in that if you're, you're really this like diehard friend for Nancy?
Yeah.
That's very weird.
And there's more. At one point during their Aspen stay, Trey went to Alpine Bank and tried applying for a $25,000 to $50,000 loan. And he told a bank officer that he needed this money to pay the first and last month's rent at Nancy Pfister's place and to start a spa in Hotel Jerome. On February 18th, the bank rejected the loan application because the Stylers' credit scores were too low. When Trey found out, he went to the bank and told the branch president that if something happened to Nancy Pfister, it would be, quote, best for all involved.
That's weird. This is getting
They're just
more and more weird.
Seeds everywhere.
This is getting ridiculous.
Yep. Trey also told the president that if he killed himself, his wife would get $1 million in life insurance payout. Later that day, he went to a local jeweler and tried to sell his wife's ring. The jeweler made Trey an offer, but Trey didn't like it. So again, he threatens to kill himself to the jeweler. He's like telling all these people he's going to kill himself.
Which is that even true? Would she get $1 million if he killed himself? Do you guys know?
I mean, it depends on the policy, but in this circumstance, yes.
Yeah, this one didn't have a suicide clause.
Oh, okay. Wow. So she really would have. Okay.
Yep. Which is crazy.
Which is important to remember for later as well.
Okay.
It is. According to a motel employee who worked at the Aspen Lodge front desk, Nancy would frequently come down to the lobby and grab the local paper. And in particular, she was interested in the stories about Nancy Pfister's murder. So she's keeping tabs on what they're doing. And according to this employee, Nancy said that she was collecting stories for a scrapbook.
A scrapbook?
Yeah.
What
a
in
scrapbook.
the world?
I know.
Like your hate book or something?
Yeah.
Her burn book. Her burn book.
Yeah.
That's the reference I was looking for.
And she had a very strange, kind of lighthearted, cheeky attitude about all of it. And the clerk would say that she would say things like, "Oh, we're the criminals in room 210.
Continue to incriminate yourself.
Yeah.
My God.
Look more and more guilty. Why don't we?
Yep.
Like if you're going to potentially commit a murder, why on earth would you go around telling all these people?
Like she thought it was a joke, kind of. Yeah. Maybe she was that confident.
Yeah, that she didn't do it.
Or alternatively, she didn't know
that
and she actually
was
is
gonna
innocent.
End up being murdered. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, they think we're the criminals, but joke's on them. We didn't actually do anything." Because maybe in her mind, she really thought that.
Sweating, not joking. If they thought I was the criminal,
same. I definitely wouldn't be flippantly talking to random people.
No.
It's very strange. So jumping back to the 28th, a lot happened that day. After the Stylers were interrogated, a town of Basalt facilities manager was doing a routine check of the bear-proof trash bins in town. And it was illegal to dump personal trash in the downtown trash bins. So this worker had been checking to see if there was any illegal trash disposed. And that's when he came across something very strange in one of the bins just behind the Aspen Lodge where the Stylers are staying.
So lo and behold, it was a prescription pill bottle with Nancy Pfister's name on it in that trash can.
Of course.
Then in a large trash bag contained even more of her personal belongings.
Oh.
And then when the worker dug a little bit deeper, he found a small white bag with a bloody hammer inside.
And
And then he throws it out. Someone
that would
throws it out.
That would freak me out.
Yeah.
If I was going through a trash bag and there was a bloody hammer in there, no way.
I know. Can you imagine?
Yeah, hammer, blood don't go together.
Yeah.
Well, I guess unless you like hammered a nail into your thumb or something. I've done that a few times. So that's one way.
But the pill bottle.
Obviously he's seeing Nancy Pfister's name and he's like connecting the dots. In his head. He's like,
she's been murdered.
Right. Yeah. Did I just find the murder weapon?
Murder. Yeah.
So after discovering all this, he immediately calls the cops. The police found more items inside the bag, like paperwork with the Stylers' names on it, a receipt for an Aspen P.O. box with Trey's name on it, and the vehicle registration for the Stylers' Jaguar. Which,
what?
If you're disposing of a murder weapon,
why put something with your name on it?
Yeah.
But here's something to throw a wrench in our thinking.
Okay.
What if someone planted this evidence trying to blame the Stylers?
It feels a little too obvious.
And who could that person possibly be?
So it goes back. Yeah, exactly. So maybe Josh had some reason.
Yeah. It's true.
I mean, the Stylers are not dumb people, like from an intelligent point of view. He's a doctor. Like these guys are not just like dummy criminals that are running around making dumb mistakes. And like these guys are really smart. Why on earth would they go and dump, if they did do the murder, why would they then go dump a bunch of their own personal paperwork along with it in the same trash can?
Right.
It makes no sense.
Feel too obvious.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you
With
could
the
say
pill
like,
bottle,
they were rushed or something and they forgot it was in there and they just threw it all in there. But it's like, really?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, whoever put the hammer in the trash can did it strategically thinking, well, nobody will ever check the trash. This public trash can, some random guy that just throws it out. Like, what's the chances that they're going to actually search through it?
Again, though,
but maybe they did know
theory,
that,
and they definitely could have
This
disposed of the trash
this is a little confusing one.
I know, it certainly is.
So the police went and searched the Stylers' Jaguar, and they found even more evidence. There was actually red-brown stains in the driver's side front and back seats, and also cleaning supplies in the trunk. 3 days later, the police even found the missing key to Nancy Pfister's closet sitting a few yards away from the Stylers' motel room.
Wow.
That day, lab results came back and confirmed that the blood on the hammer indeed belonged to Nancy Pfister. So again, could be planted evidence there, or this is just like
open and shut.
Yeah. Criminals just
Hard to say.
lost control of the situation. We're not thinking through any of their actions, and we're just messy after, which in my mind seems kind of unlikely considering who we're dealing with here. But Nancy and Trey were arrested on March 3rd, and they were both charged with first-degree murder of Nancy Pfister. But there's another twist. 11 days later, on March 14th, Kathy Carpenter was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. The police said that Kathy's statements to them were inconsistent, and she also had a motive, given their rocky relationship. And probably some of the things that Nancy Styler told police as well. So police are connecting the dots here. They're like, okay, there's more than one person involved here based on the evidence we're finding and based on the statements that they're collecting.
So Kathy told the Aspen Sheriff Joe DeSalvo that she'd seen the Stylers at Nancy Pfister's home on February 26th. But later she told the Pitkin County Sheriff's Office investigator Brad Gibson that she hadn't seen them there that day.
Anytime there is inconsistencies in someone's story, I'm just instantly like, they're involved, they're guilty, because to mess that up that many times, I don't know. I just have zero.
Yeah, because it is a little like you think that these things would just get concrete in your brain once something traumatic happens.
Yeah.
So when someone's story does start changing, the only reasonable explanation feels like, well, they're lying and they can't remember their lies.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's weird.
Yep. And we see that over and over and over.
Not to mention her behavior.
Yeah, it was real bizarre. If you watch the interrogation footage, which it's all like copyright, so we couldn't put any of it in, but it's out there. You can look at it. It's very interesting. There's this one point where she is like, looks like she's hysterically crying, losing her shit. But then it turns out that actually she was fake crying during it, and there was no tears on her face. So
yeah, like the police were like, this is fake.
So like, how do you know she wasn't doing that during the call?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, this is kind of bizarre. She was talking at one point about the location of Nancy's injuries and how they were on her forehead. But it turns out the way she was describing it was like spot on exactly where the injuries were found in the autopsy. So how did she know exactly like where these injuries were if she just like basically opened the door, found this person dead with the sheet over her head, runs out? Like, it's not like she was in there poking around or anything, and somehow she knew exactly where those injuries were.
Which, didn't she deny that, or she tried to walk that back at one point?
No,
she said that.
There was this one part where they believed that she was saying there's blood all over her forehead on the 911 call, but she was like, no, I said headboard, and they go back, do some research, and it was technically headboard, so it wasn't anything wrong.
Still, she's looking pretty suspicious to me.
I know, it's hard. So Kathy's mother also told one of the CBI agents that Kathy said she'd seen Nancy's body wrapped in a sheet, but when Kathy was interviewed by that same CBI agent, she didn't mention anything about this. But then there's this. Turns out, the day after she found Nancy dead, Kathy went to Nancy's safety deposit box and emptied it out, pocketing $6,000 in cash and also 2 family rings.
It's like, why?
I know.
Now she just looks so guilty because who does that when their best friend just died?
Why is that a priority for you?
Makes it
right after this, right? Shouldn't you be grieving and just like
Shouldn't
trying to
going there make you feel sick?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
She ended up using some of this money to buy her son a plane ticket home and pay his college tuition. And Kathy tried to cover this up and hide it from police. She told them that she was planning on giving the rings to Juliana, who is Nancy's daughter, but it's never been confirmed that she actually gave them to her. And in her interview, she's been very much like, they're trying to paint me as a thief. I'm not a thief. That wasn't my intention. So
she makes it sound like she's just trying to be a good friend, and that's what Nancy would want her to do, I guess.
And it's
to
so hard
get
when
it
listening to her
daughter.
because she sounds so genuine and authentic to me, but of course you can't.
Her actions speak way different.
I know.
Than what,
I know.
She's saying.
Then there's the issue of the 911 call. Kathy says that she didn't move the body or touch anything. But how would she have known that Nancy was dead under those sheets unless she checked? Could she have assumed that the sheets were just a pile of laundry? Kathy told the 911 operator, she's dead, full of blood, wrapped in a thing. But the way that Nancy was wrapped, you couldn't see any blood. So how did she know that Nancy was,
was her in the first place,
blood in the first place?
Oh, this is getting worse and worse.
I know.
Kind of seems like maybe she was a part of it and was there prior, or even wrapped Nancy in the the sheet and bags. And if she had felt Nancy's body, wouldn't she have uncovered it to see if Nancy was okay instead of just assuming she was dead, right? Kathy said that the plastic bag over Nancy's head was almost translucent and she could see blood and hair under it. So she just assumed it was Nancy. But investigators say that the bedsheet had been completely covering Nancy's head and the bag. But the case took a dramatic turn on June 16th, 2014, just before Trey's first court hearing. Trey Styler confessed to the murder of Nancy Pfister. This was part of a plea deal in which he pled guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for the release of both Kathy and his wife, Nancy.
Oh, this is suspicious.
Oh, wow.
Nah, this doesn't make sense.
Sounds like he's falling on his sword here for them.
I mean, and at first he was like hardcore saying he didn't do it. He was saying he's disabled, that he was literally in the interrogation footage, which unfortunately we can't show. It's quite interesting. He's like, gets on the ground and is like trying to climb back on the chair and like showing, which could have all been real. He did have health issues. He was older. But it seemed like he was really trying to make it clear that there's no way I could have done something like this. But then he flips.
Which threw a huge wrench into investigators' case because they were looking at this as a conspiracy between all three of them. That's why all three of them were charged. They were going to bring them all down together because they felt like they had enough evidence to go that route until Trey all of a sudden flips the script on them and is like,
you can't
they weren't involved. It was all me.
What are you supposed to do? It's like, okay, I guess it was you. Like, how do you believe anybody else at that point?
Right. Well, now it's hard because now as the DA, you got to decide. I've got this slam dunk case right here. This guy's pleading guilty to murder for Nancy, murdering Nancy. So I have to go this way and let these other two go.
Yeah.
But was that the right move ultimately? Trey told investigators that he didn't know what happened. He said he just lost his rational mind and he just done it. So kind of the way the events happened, according to him, is that early in the morning on Monday the 24th, while his wife was sleeping, he secretly slipped out of their motel room and drove over to Nancy Pfister's house at 1833 West Buttermilk Drive. Trey claimed he originally came over to the house to confront Nancy. He said he ended up walking into the house, making his way to the bedroom and opening the door a crack. He poked his head in and called her name, but she didn't respond because obviously she was sleeping. She had eye mask on, earplugs in. He just said that when he saw Nancy just peacefully sleeping there, he just completely lost his shit. Like he just was like, this woman has made our lives hell, and something just flipped in him. And at that point, he went down to the garage. He grabbed a garbage bag, a hammer, and an extension cord. And then he walked back up to the bedroom where Nancy was still sound asleep. And he said he felt all the anger and rage that had built up in him since his life fell apart.
It seems too scripted. It seems so just like he went home and he's like, okay, what am I going to say to the police? This is what I'm going to say. A, B, C, D. That's what happened. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
but at the same time, is it possible?
That's what I was going to say. Is there a world where his wife is so bitter that he does go do this?
And he was bitter too. He was pissed.
Like he's like, okay,
Between
I'll
the
just
two of
go
them,
do this.
They felt like she was ruining their life.
Yeah.
They're probably sitting there every night talking about it.
They're already down on their luck.
Yeah.
He's already not feeling well.
I guess I just don't know how sick was he?
He was pretty sick.
Could he walk around? Could he swing a hammer at like full strength? Like how?
Definitely. He definitely could.
That's the big question. He could walk around, but there's been a lot of questioning of could he do it with
could
such
he move
force,
a body
move the
to
hammer?
the closet? Dead bodies are, I mean, I don't know
Dead
from
weight,
experience.
Holy moly.
I'm just saying that they're hard to move.
No, totally.
Yeah.
So that's been a big question here is could he have actually physically done this?
Interesting.
Which there's no really way to determine 100% either way. But is it really possible that he could have just gotten so caught up in the anger in the moment that everything came rushing back at once? You know, his health, losing his job, losing his life savings, selling his house, leaving his old life behind, trying to start over, and instead being tormented and evicted by a woman who's lying in front of him, sleeping soundly, peacefully with her earbuds in, and she's right there. Could he have gotten angry enough that he actually grabbed that hammer and hit Nancy in the face super hard?
Too convenient. Here's why. He said he's going over to her house to confront her. So if you go over to her house, you're going to go up to the door, but who's just going to let themselves into the house at that point?
And in the middle of the night.
Right. Like who's just going to go
No, that's
right
such
in?
a good point.
So to me, it's showing that there's premeditation there.
Exactly.
Because he slips out of the motel room according to his plan, which means he probably had the thought in his head at the motel room prior to going over there. This was not just like, oh, I'm going to go over there and maybe she's up and she wants to chat and talk and we'll work through this, whatever the issue is.
Mm-hmm.
No, he went over there full well knowing that she likely would be asleep and he would be able to gain access to her house and
100%.
to her room.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, was it just him or did others help him with this? Because
and the whole time, isn't that sign still on the door that says like Nancy or that says Nancy sleeping, don't bug me or whatever it said?
Yeah, that Kathy put on the door.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
So who sees that and is like, oh, I'm going to let myself in anyway.
Go
Who
in.
cares if she's sleeping?
Yeah. Oh, I need to confront her so
That's
bad.
creepy either way you look at it. Like, what are you doing? What's your purpose for being there at that point?
So how this all goes down, according to him, he says that after he hits her the first time, she starts to make a noise like she was still alive. So he hits her again. And then Nancy stops moving, but she was still breathing. So he strikes her again. And at this point, he had killed Nancy Pfister. Then Trey placed the garbage bag over her head to contain the blood. He placed her on top of the bed sheet, wrapped her up in it, tied her up with the extension cord, then dragged her across 12 feet of carpet into the walk-in closet. And this is a very old man who, again, has health issues. Is this possible for him to do alone? Trey tidied up the scene, grabbed some of Nancy's stuff, including her pill bottles, phone, pearls, and her cigarettes, which is a really strange thing to grab. And he wanted to make it look like Nancy had gone somewhere. So I guess maybe she, probably would have taken her cigarettes, but I still think that's kind of a strange move. He also flipped the mattress to cover up the pool of blood, which is like, what was the thinking behind that? Like, they're just like, oh, we'll just leave that there. Obviously they're going to find it anyway. It's so strange. The entire murder and cleanup lasted about 45 minutes, according to Trey.
After this, Trey drove back to the Aspen Alt Lodge with a bag full of Nancy's stuff and the bloody hammer in the trunk. He said he returned to find his wife awake, wondering what took him so long to go and run errands, which again, you just said he snuck out.
In the middle of the night. Where's
it's not adding up here. Yeah.
That's just true, actually.
And so he was telling them that, he was going out to rent storage units or something. And that's why it took him so long. And apparently that explanation worked for his wife. So even the explaining the situation with his wife makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Right.
Trey then said he forgot about the bag in the trunk for 2 days. And when he heard on the 26th that there were squad cars outside of Nancy's home, it triggered his memory. And that's when he threw out the bag in that basalt trash bin. He said that he committed the crime alone and neither his wife, Nancy, nor Kathy had anything to do with it. He said that neither of them knew he was going to commit the murder or that he'd done it at all, let alone killed Nancy and then cleaned up the crime scene totally by himself. Again, we're talking like 45 minutes here. That's not a lot of time to do all the things.
Clean up.
Yeah.
Red flag to also emphasize, I did it by myself. No one else was involved. Like, it was just me.
It just sounds like you're like trying to exclude others from this. Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is interesting stuff. So let's watch a little bit of the confession here.
I struck my first blow in the back of the room. That was what was available right here. And with 2 frontal ones down where on top, because I knew that would preclude any consciousness.
I forgot he was a doctor.
Yeah.
So he was explaining in terms of, I know exactly where to hit her.
Right.
So, wow. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He does seem frail.
Yeah. Oh, he certainly is. And actually, can we just pull up for Garrett and Peyton the original footage of him? I know we can't put it in the episode for all of you guys, but I'd like for you guys to see him in the initial interrogation. So you can see how frail he actually is.
He's
or
old.
Possibly could have been playing it up a little bit, but
no way.
Right.
So this is after he's initially arrested too.
Of course, it could be a defense tactic too.
Right.
And
we saw that with the Golden State Killer when he went to trial. But
yeah, no, that's true.
Moving a whole body.
There's even more footage than that too. I mean, like I said, there's footage of him literally on the ground, like trying to climb up onto the chair, and he's he literally says, "I'm fucking disabled." But again, like, how can you truly know if it was played up or not, or if that's actually how he was? But given his age and his health, like, it could.
He just looks like his arms, like he just looks frail.
He looks frail.
Could he have committed this murder and then moved her body?
I don't know. By herself.
Man, that changes everything.
I know. That's why I feel like it's so crucial to see him.
And when they first took him in, actually, the arresting officers said that he was so frail they had to carry him.
Yeah.
Basically out of the hotel room. Like.
Yeah.
He was in bed.
Yeah. He was in bed, and they made note that he looked very, very frail, very sick.
And would someone who has been talking about taking their life for a long time and to multiple people be willing to take the fall for his wife if he doesn't really care much about his life anyway?
Oh, yeah.
That was exactly what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
When Trey initially gave his confession, investigators actually didn't believe it. Because again, like we just saw, he could barely stand up or walk on his own. So how could this frail man tie up and bludgeon a woman to death, wrap up her body, then flip the mattress, and then place the body into the closet, then clean up the scene all by himself in this short window of around 45 minutes? Seems very unlikely, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Pickens County Sheriff's Office investigator Brad Gibson thought it wasn't likely that one person could have been involved in moving and wrapping the body. He said that it would be hard for 4 grown men to move a body, and one person dragging a body for even a very short distance would be extremely difficult, let alone
12
it being Trey. Yeah.
This is interesting, and we'll kind of circle back to this in a minute, but Nancy claims that once she was released from jail that she got a letter from Trey, and part of it said, quote, "I know you're innocent and you should believe that I am too." And that the only reason he was pleading guilty was to save Nancy from going to prison.
Well, there you go.
But
let's hear about what Nancy has to say about her involvement, though.
Did you kill Nancy Pfister?
Nothing to do with it.
You had nothing to do with the murder whatsoever?
Nothing.
You weren't there in the moments after she was killed?
It's 20 miles away.
You weren't there to help clean up the scene or to move the body?
No, and I would have done a better job. The job that was done was not a thinking mind.
What do you think of that?
What in the world?
Yeah.
Although it was weird, if you look closely, her chin is like quivering like crazy when she's
I
saying
would
that.
have done a better job. Who says that?
I know. That's weird. Or unless she's really trying to sell the story.
Yeah.
And, going back to her lip quivering, Janelle, I mean, from the other, to play devil's advocate, obviously, if you're being questioned about if you murdered someone, wouldn't you get a little nervous? But it isn't. It's weird. It certainly is weird.
Yeah.
When was this interview that we're watching?
Oh, this one was done way later.
Yeah. Way later.
Yeah.
Because I would think if she's going around town joking about it, that talking about it on an interview and saying, no, it wasn't me, wouldn't make her lip quiver.
That's a great point.
Oh, that is, I mean, no matter when it was, that's a good point. Because right after she was going around joking about it, like so lightheartedly.
We're the people who killed her,
Oh, that's so true.
Did you notice too, like right when he finished asking the question, she almost looks like she's about to be like nod her head yes. And then she's like, she switches it. She's like,
yep.
And I'm like,
yeah.
She just looks very guilty.
A sign
to
of
me.
someone faking mannerisms.
Yep.
Okay, I need to act like I'm. Oh wait, no, I'm not. I'm not supposed to be nodding right now.
And I think her strategy is to come across like that, like aggressive and continue. She's like, well, it's worked so far, so I'm gonna keep it up.
Yeah.
And just stick by my guns, and probably thinking like if I change up my approach or my method, it might make me look more guilty. So I'm just gonna keep going hard and be like, just because I hate her doesn't mean that I would kill her.
Yeah.
And she's just keeping that whole act going. But
right. So obviously the big question here is, could Trey have done this alone? He was so weak when he was arrested that police, like we said, had to carry him out of the motel room. It seems next to impossible that Trey moved Nancy's body alone. Or did his wife help kill Nancy Pfister? Was she an accessory after the fact? Or did she actually have nothing to do with it? Obviously, that's a possibility as well. And then what about Kathy? Why did she clean out Nancy Pfister's safety deposit box? She claims that she was just grabbing a ring to save for Juliana, something that Kathy claims Nancy told her to do if for some reason anything were to happen to her, which is also kind of strange too.
Yeah.
Like, we have no way of knowing that that's true. Kathy claims that she was just doing what Nancy wanted her to do, but Juliana hasn't spoken to Kathy since the murder.
Of course.
So that tells you quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
She never confirmed Kathy's story. There's also another interesting detail about this case. On the morning of February 24th, Nancy Styler's cell phone pinged from the Snowmass area near Nancy Pfister's home.
And she just said that she was 20 miles away.
Yes.
No. There's no way.
So that's a big bombshell right there.
Yeah.
Trey said that his phone was out of batteries, so he took his wife's instead, which seems...
Why would you even risk that?
When I was tiptoeing to get up to sneak out, I tipped over to her side and I grabbed her cell phone.
Well, why would you want to like possibly incriminate your wife that way by bringing her cell phone to the murder, the crime scene? So,
and then Nancy Styler has a different version of events. She claims that her husband took her phone so that it wouldn't wake her.
Okay, solid reasoning.
They're doing great.
Yeah, they should have talked.
But why? Why was a phone so crucial
That's the other
to this?
thing. Like,
who are they calling?
And he can't call her. So she has, he has
why
her
do
phone.
You need
That's
the phone?
true.
Does Kathy get a call?
What is the purpose here? And the whole thing about not waking her, I mean, just silence the phone or turn it off. It's just super weird. But it turns out both Trey and Nancy Styler's phone had pinged from that area. Both of them.
Oh.
But Nancy Styler says she has an alibi.
Though? Why would both phones ping in that case?
Yeah.
Why would one person need two phones to bring to the scene?
Exactly.
Unless both people were there.
Did they not get the phone records to see? So did she call anyone? I guess, or I'm saying she did it. Was the phone used to call anybody during that time?
We'll get to that in a sec. Okay. But Nancy Styler says that she had an alibi. When she woke up that morning, Trey was gone. She didn't know where he was. She also noticed that her phone was missing. So she dug into her purse for her iPhone 3, an old business phone that she and Trey sometimes used.
At 10:58 a.m., she called her phone to try and find it. There was no answer. And at 11:26 a.m., she called Trey and there was no answer. A minute later, she called her phone again and there was no answer. 2 minutes later, Nancy called Nancy Pfister's handyman, but again got no answer. Each of these calls pinged from the Basalt area. Does this exonerate Nancy Styler or no? I don't really think so necessarily.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
On June 20th, 2014, a judge sentenced Trey Styler to 20 years in prison for second-degree murder of Nancy Pfister. Given his health, obviously this is essentially a life imprisonment. Prosecutors were considering charging Kathy Carpenter with theft, but these charges were never filed. Rumors have spread that the police and prosecutor's office accepted the confession and plea deal in order to avoid the scandal and cost of a trial.
And get this, remember the little letter that he wrote to Nancy when she got out of jail? Well, he ended up calling her and telling her that he actually lied in part of the letter, and that in fact he did kill Nancy Pfister on his own, and that Kathy had nothing to do with it. And Nancy was completely shocked and said that this flipped her world upside down, and then described him as a monster. So she like totally has gone against him since.
Weird.
Yeah, which is that to confirm the story more and make it more believable.
Yeah.
But it's, if he's really taking the fall for her, that's pretty cold.
Yeah.
But maybe he wanted her to do that.
Right. And obviously after Nancy's death, people, who knew her gathered at none other than Hotel Jerome to celebrate her life, share stories, and mourn her death. So a lot of people still really loved her and, missed her. And she was that kind of well-known socialite in town. And so, to this day, Kathy says that she is so upset that she was not able to be there because she was in jail at the time.
I think it's interesting, too, that Nancy Styler says, well, there was not a single person that said one nice word about her. It's like,
it's not true.
The
It's not
memorial
true.
service is clearly proof that that wasn't true. And, lots of people had
wonderful things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
Had issues with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
There's no denying that. But
yeah,
to be like, everyone just absolutely hated her. Nobody had one nice thing to say about her.
Yeah. It's definitely not the case. I mean, many people liked Nancy, loved Nancy, and she had tons of
Yeah,
friends.
she was friends with everyone.
She knew how to have a good time, that's for sure. So
Yeah.
I'm sure people had tons of good memories with
Seriously.
Nancy, man. Like memorable ones for sure.
Yeah. She certainly did not deserve to be murdered in such a brutal fucking way.
Absolutely not.
After Trey confessed to the murder, Nancy Styler filed for divorce soon after. She also went back to her maiden name, Masson, and moved to Massachusetts. Trey Styler was incarcerated at the Arrowhead Correctional Facility in Canyon City, Colorado. On August 6, 2015, though, he was found dead in his cell from an apparent suicide.
So after all that,
Wow.
he finally did it.
Okay.
According to some reports, Trey had
This is
swallowed
crazy.
pieces of a broken pen and choked. Others say he hung
Yikes.
himself with a bed sheet.
I know.
Okay.
Brutal either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the big caveat to this is that Nancy Styler was paid out that $1 million from the life insurance policy.
How is she
So-
still in the policy? That's
I
crazy.
guess
Yeah,
because it was
after-
done before all of it,
It just-
is still
before
in
it was all
effect.
finalized.
Wow.
He takes the fall and then follows through to get her money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or did he
Or
take the
did
fall?
he? Or did he?
Maybe he actually
maybe I
did
shouldn't
it.
say that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing is like no one will ever know
Yeah.
It's
what
just
truly happened.
It's just hard too because how the cop or the detective said that it would take maybe four grown men.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, could Nancy and Kathy have even done it together? Could all
Yeah.
three of them have even done it together?
Right.
Could they have even moved the body? Like, it's all so just
I know it's very
everywhere.
confusing.
Yeah.
Which,
Either
in my
way-
opinion,
Go ahead.
no, sorry, you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say either way definitely took longer than 45 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, for
Uh-huh.
sure. That I think we can all agree on. I do think it's a little strange that they said it would have taken 4 grown men. I don't
Yeah.
think that's
I don't know if
necessarily
that's
the
true
case.
or not.
That seems a bit exaggerated.
Yeah.
yeah.
What's interesting is that Juliana, Nancy's daughter, never spoke to Kathy after her mother's murder. I think that says a lot. And what's crazy is that Kathy Carpenter passed away suddenly this past January in Evergreen, Colorado.
Very
So she's
recently.
no longer alive and maybe took a lot of secrets
Yeah.
to the grave with her.
Possibly.
Possibly. Nancy Styler now likely works as an esthetician in Massachusetts. She knows many people still believe she is a murderer, but others are starting to come around to her. She believes that her husband killed Nancy Pfister, and although she openly admits she hated Nancy Pfister, she said that she didn't deserve to die. That's not what she was saying earlier.
Yeah, it didn't feel
That's a
that
big
way.
change there. She also believes that Nancy Pfister's behavior was a precipitating factor in the murder, though. She's like, oh, it kind of almost insinuates like she kind of got what was coming to her in a way. Nancy Styler also co-wrote the book Guilt by Matrimony, a memoir of love, madness, and the murder of Nancy Pfister. So now she's profiting off of this, which was published in 2015. Nancy Pfister's family, as well as Kathy Carpenter, tried to stop the book's release. And apparently it's a really bad and kind of creepy book based on what we found during our research and reviews.
Julia, you actually read the book, right?
Yeah, I read like most of it, and it's weird the way that when you consider that Nancy Styler's not writing this all by herself. Like there's a writer who's a co-author.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's still weird the way that she's described in the book. It's like with her, her usual cheer, and she's always Trey's cheerleader, and it's just so overly negative talking about Nancy Pfister, and so just like effusive praise for Nancy Styler, and a lot of, I think, excuses made for Trey. I just thought it was just kind of creepy, and this is your husband killed this woman, and you're writing a book just
so distasteful.
Her. Like, you are not in jail right now. You're not going to be prosecuted. You got $1 million. I mean, it's, why would you then just go and write a book disparaging this woman? Like, what good does that do?
Yeah, I agree. That's extremely strange.
There's also this really weird claim in it. It says that Trey thought bludgeoning Nancy to death with a hammer was, quote, the nicest thing anyone ever did for Nancy Pfister.
What the fuck?
What in the world?
That is crazy. Dude, her mind.
Nuts.
Why even put that in there?
Yeah.
What's the benefit of that?
Why is she so bitter? Like, so bitter. It's
Could she have convinced
outrageous.
Trey to kill Nancy?
That's what I was saying. Is there a world where she was back at the hotel because she convinced Trey to do it?
Yeah.
Or not the hotel, the apartment.
Yeah.
How fucked up if that's really the case, that he...
And maybe they were evaluating their situation, and they were like, well, your health's going downhill. Maybe you're just going to die. Yeah. And so she's like, here's the plan. Why don't we kill her? And then you take the fall for it.
Crazy.
And then kill yourself, and I'll, give me the money, and I'll go live my life, I guess. I mean, that's a very cruel plan. But I'm just speculating.
Possible,
it's a possible situation that could have played out. But Juliana, Nancy's daughter, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Nancy Styler in 2016.
Wow.
And this lawsuit alleged that Trey fabricated his confession so Nancy could get that insurance payout. It also said that Nancy Styler profited off murder through her book. And the suit was settled out of court, and those details are confidential. But we actually do have a clip of Juliana talking about her mom, which we'll play right now.
I have no idea how someone could do something like that, and especially to her. And I think that, my mom could never hurt anything or hurt anyone. And that is one thing that everyone that knew her knew.
We talk about this a lot on our podcast about how there's always more than one victim in these stories, and that typically the victims' families are also just so heavily victimized and
impacted.
Yeah. And it's just so heartbreaking every time you get to the end of these and you hear the families talk about their loved one.
Yeah, I mean, for them, it never stops.
No.
It's every single day for the rest of their lives that they have to wake up and face reality and think about what happened to them. It's one thing if your loved one dies of a heart attack or something tragic like a car accident. Obviously, it's extremely painful, but to think about such a brutal killing that someone took their life, like the anger that you have to deal with and process, all that trauma just takes such a toll on people.
It completely changes your life.
Yeah, it really does. So sad.
What's also interesting and important to note is that Suzanne, Nancy Pfister's sister, applied for a permanent restraining orders against Nancy Styler and Kathy Carpenter, and she believes that her sister was murdered by more than one person. So ultimately, Nancy Pfister was cremated, and her daughter successfully campaigned to have her added to the In Memory of Friends in Aspen shrine to notable Aspen residents in Snowmass Village. But I can't even imagine. I mean, that's a really hard thing to deal with, and especially knowing, the family clearly knows in their hearts that there's one, two people got off the hook for this. So maybe, but I mean,
one person, or I don't know. I think it's pretty.
I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest
there was
that
a lot
more. What do you guys think? All in all,
I think that, first of all, poor Nancy. That's horrible.
It doesn't.
She got murdered, and that's horrible. She didn't do anything wrong. And I think at the beginning, I would have been like, there's no way Kathy was involved. But I think after hearing all the evidence, especially moving a body that's like so big for me, I just think there is no way he could have done that alone. I feel like there's no way. I don't know what you think.
I think that she was definitely there. I don't think that one person did it by themselves. About Kathy, though.
Right? That's the hard part.
I don't know. I want to say no because I don't think the motive was strong enough. Do I think that there was motive? Maybe. I don't think she was involved.
That's the hard part.
Really?
With Kathy. I mean, there's some things, but it's like, could she have had it in her to do this to someone who she did consider a friend?
Yeah.
But they had a very tumultuous relationship.
They did, but like enough for her. I don't know. It's hard. And again, I'm going off of the 911 call. I'm going off of other interviews that I've seen of her where she just seems so fucking torn up about it.
But is that regret? Is that guilt?
It could be. It could be.
That is coming out. That's what happens a lot of times. Is like people.
But Josh, what does she gain? What did she gain by her best friend being murdered?
$6,000 that she paid her son's college tuition with. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean,
or did she just take it? Was she just a bad friend taking advantage of
the situation,
her friend's death?
Yeah.
Would she have done it for that? Like thinking in her mind, oh, if she's dead, I can go to the safety deposit box. Like that seems like.
Yeah. Or is she just in pure trauma mode that she's like, I got to go get that safety deposit box. I got to get the ring. Okay, here's the money.
Or
Who else is gonna take it?
Did she secretly just envy and hate her that much that
she could have?
She just was like, I'm done.
There could have been.
But what did we learn from Bernie Tita? Is that even the most like people who we feel are the most trustworthy and friendly and
it's so
good-hearted people,
yeah,
put in the right or the wrong situation, I guess, and those feelings are overwhelming to the point where you're willing to risk it all, so to speak.
I was kind of telling you guys about that case earlier, the one that Jack Black is in the movie. We just covered it. You guys were supposed to be here, but he was so loved by his community and thought of to be like the nicest.
He was like leading
ever.
Church services, and like
he was singing in the choir and like helping all these grieving widows, and he was
giving
this friend
tons of
to
money
this
away.
woman, but she was like abusive to him and controlling, and not in classic abusive ways, but like manipulative, like just control till the point where he just snapped and lost it. And so like if Bernie could do it, I think Kathy could do it.
Did she just meet two people who wanted to do it, and they had spent so long while Nancy was in Australia talking about her and getting their feelings hurt? And
it's true.
It's true. Because she faked cried in her interview, right? Didn't they figure out like that's just? I mean, that's weird.
She was real crying in the. Like
maybe I don't know. It didn't look like it to me.
It should get eye drops.
She looks like it to me, but it's hard. I was just like instantly start feeling bad for people, but maybe I'm just like too. I don't know.
I think it was a group effort between the three of them.
I kind of think. I think I'm in the same boat.
In order to pull this off in the way that they did, in as fast of the time that they did, without people seeing them, without having all these witnesses and everything, there had to be a coordinated effort there from Kathy potentially letting him know, hey, Nancy's going to bed.
Yeah.
The door's going to be open.
But it's also nighttime and they have a key and they figure she's going to be asleep. Like, I don't know.
And why then does Kathy turn on them so fast as soon as the 911 call is placed?
Yeah.
If it's a coordinated effort between the three of them, was it always planned for her to throw them under the bus? Or was this like really all an elaborate plan for him to take the fall?
Right.
I don't know.
Like how long do you have to plan something like this too, right?
Yeah.
This is a pretty elaborate thing if it really was all three of them at the same time.
Possibly, but they did a shitty job if they actually did plan on it.
True.
Like putting all the trash in the, you know?
Because it feels like if Kathy's involved, she flipped heavily on them, started planning evidence.
Yeah.
Maybe not planning some of the evidence.
Or no one planted that evidence and he just didn't think it through and threw it out where he lives.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't think anyone's going to go through the trash can. They didn't know about like the bear, that they go through and make sure there's not these illegal trash being put in there. And maybe it was just a fuck up.
I'm surprised there was no DNA evidence in the.
So there was DNA evidence that was found on Trey's blood was found.
But that's it.
Or Trey's DNA.
No
was
one
found.
DNA from anyone else.
Yeah, as far as we know. But there was also cleaning that went on too.
Yes,
that's true. There was.
So he had cleaning supplies. So,
but you'd think you'd find something.
Yeah,
if other
a piece
people
of hair,
were
strand
there.
of hair, or something.
Well,
maybe.
especially women too. I
Can
mean, their
that-
hair is always coming out.
Is it possible he really did this himself too? He could have that. Rage and adrenaline can give you superpowers, even people who are older like him.
It's true.
So, in my opinion, I think it's possible he really did it. But okay, I feel like, well, first of all, you two, do you guys have any additional thoughts? Janelle and Julia here.
I was going to say, I think there's a lot of documents that are still sealed.
Yeah.
In this case.
There are.
There might be
more
answers to
evidence.
some answered questions. There might be more questions.
That's interesting you bring that up though, because remember, the investigators were looking at this as a conspiracy to commit murder between all three of them.
Yeah.
And so they were formally charged. So I just think that there's more that we don't know about that would have potentially, and there's other interviews with people involved with this case who have said that had Trey not confessed, they believe all three of them would have went down, that they would have had the evidence needed to bring them all down.
There's investigators that feel pretty solid about that.
Do you think, Janelle, do you think they had motive though to kill Nancy? Like, was there a good motive here to do it? Or was this kind of like an emotional response?
Personally, I think if they say their motive was because she was treating them like shit, okay, well, too fucking bad. Like, you get bad, quote unquote, landlords all the time. You don't go off and kill them.
You just had a bad landlord.
Yeah. And I have no interest in hurting her.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that there really is not. I guess the motive would be that they're pissed off because she was treating them like shit. And she's off in Australia. Meanwhile, their stove doesn't work and blah, blah. And maybe Kathy's putting little bugs in their ear. I'm not really sure on the Kathy thing. That's like probably the thing I'm tripped up about the most is like, for sure don't think that Trey did it alone. I think that Nancy had some part in it. Was she there with the hammer that night? I'm not sure. Did she come after? I don't know. It's the whole thing with Nancy though. I cannot really form a solid opinion on whether or not she had anything to do with
Kathy?
it. Or Kathy, yeah, sorry. I can't really form a solid opinion on whether or not Kathy
They had evidence to charge her. They don't just do that without evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people are charged.
Yeah.
True.
When they're
all the
innocent.
time.
So
All the time.
Yeah.
Well, let's do a vote here since we have 6 people in the building. Just if you had to
Hung
choose,
jury.
okay?
Hung jury.
Raise your hand if you think, or actually, I guess we're on a podcast. Say I.
We'll just say I. Yeah,
if you think that Trey acted alone. Is there anybody? All right, so no one thinks that.
No one thinks that.
Say I if you think that it was just Nancy and Trey.
I.
So 4. So that's
4.
Kendall, Peyton. Okay.
The girls?
Yeah, the girls. All the girls. Yeah.
Okay. And say I, gentlemen, if you think that all 3 of them conspired together.
Yeah.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
I think
Absolutely.
100%.
They needed some inside intel. They needed to know what was going on at Nancy's house.
Yeah.
It was them.
The events like directly after her finding the body.
Yeah.
There's so many things.
Yeah.
The interrogation with her is very questionable. The fact that they charged her.
It's hard. I'm not like completely against it.
Yeah,
but
I'm not either.
I think
that way.
I think it's like Josh said too. I think it came to a point where it was like, okay, we have an open and shut case, plea deal, send them to jail, move on, or we can try to charge these three people. And I mean, will they get charged? I mean, like, will it happen? We don't know.
Yeah.
So
The thing that bothers me so much about interrogation footage is like, I've never been interrogated, but I can only imagine how stressful it is, whether you're guilty or not. And
It's
so
true.
They did put these guys through the ringer too.
That's what
for
I'm
sure.
saying. Like, they were going hard on them.
The sheriff himself came in and was like,
right.
He did.
And for a
questioning them.
long time.
True.
So at some point, you're getting broken down. They're confusing you because the way they do it is very manipulative. It's very much so like, oh, you know you did it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. You might as well say you did it because it'll be easier for you if you just say you did it. And so it's hard
That's
for me to
exactly
be
what
like,
the suspect would say.
right. And so it's like, it's really not, I don't want to say fair, but for lack of a better term, fair to be like, we'll base it on their interrogation footage. Kathy wasn't really crying.
But what about Kathy going to get the money and the rings and Juliana filing restraining orders and they hate her?
But she also said that Kathy was saying how Nancy specifically told her, I don't know if this is true or not, but she said that Nancy told her, if something ever happens to me, go get this money, give it to Juliana, and so maybe it was like
you
were
legitimate?
saying, Peyton, about okay, you're in this state of shock and you're trying to, the gears are turning on trying to figure out what to do. And so the best thing she can think of is oh, right, Nancy told me to go do this and I got to go get it done. I don't know.
It's possible. Obviously, it's possible she made that up too. But
totally.
But I agree. I don't think there's enough to say with certainty unless there's other stuff in the sealed documents that we just don't know.
Right.
I have a wild theory.
Okay. Lay it on.
What if the handyman was somehow involved in this? Okay. And he completely...
Where'd
the hammer come from? The handyman's got the...
Bring him into this.
You said 4 grown men. At least get another
at least get another one.
There
Maybe
we go. The handyman's involved.
Oh, you sound like Garrett.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's
handyman's listening to this what? Why are you throwing me under the bus?
That wasn't even my hammer.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys, it has been a really interesting episode having some more voices here with us to kind of bounce. It is fun. You want to come every week?
I know, right?
Move here.
This just has so much more conversation and opinions, and it's fun.
It is, yeah.
It's fun to bounce ideas off each other, right? And get more perspectives in the conversation.
I feel like I learned more about the case in a weird way.
Yeah, that's why we love having Julie and Janelle here with us too. Versus it used to, in the very early days, it was just Josh and I, and it's always improved the more people we get involved. So.
Well, sometimes you miss things, right? Or somebody else is thinking something you just completely forgot about, and they bring it up, and you're like, oh yeah, that's completely. That totally makes sense. Or they bring up something that you would never have thought about had they not been there. So I think the more minds, the more fun. that was corny as hell.
Of course, we have all of your minds out there that we would like to pick as well. Although I hate when people say pick my brain. Ugh, disgusting. But we want to pick your brain. We want to hear what you think. So let us know in the comments below. And what scenario do you think is most likely here, you guys? But also be sure to check out our episode with Peyton and Garrett over at Murder with My Husband, and be sure to follow them as well. These guys are awesome and have a couple of different shows like they mentioned. So check it out for more content.
If you liked this, you're probably going to like that one too.
And thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for being
much.
here, guys.
It's been so fun.
Thank you for coming.
It was definitely worth going through the
3 times the charm.
Yeah.
The 3 trips to the airport.
Hey, we're done.
Hey, we still haven't imported the footage yet, though.
Did you hit record?
Yes. I've checked literally 50 times.
Oh my God.
Until this
we get
is
done
actually uploaded.
Sorry. Don't even say that.
Yeah.
Don't even
be
say
awful.
that.
Anyway, that's going to be it for us today, guys. We will be back next week, of course. But until then, keep on taking your mind a mile higher.